Chapter 1848. Beneath Dragon Lake City. Su Zimo gazed at the black mass of the vicious wolf army before him, and his expression remained unchanged as he smiled and said, "All of you really think highly of me to actually dispatch an army of over 10,000. You're Su Zimo?" The third head of the vicious wolf army revealed a ferocious glow as he asked loudly. Su Zimo's brows raised slightly as he replied with a question. "For you? Haha." The third head roared with laughter and said, "A rank 5 mystic immortal like you isn't worthy of knowing my name. Go ask the king of hell when you're dead." Su Zimo said indifferently, "So, it's a nameless scoundrel." The third head glared with his eyes as he flew into a rage, and he urged the black-scale devil wolf beneath him to charge forward and smash the top of Su Zimo's head into pieces. "Third brother." Right at this moment, the nearby fourth head frowned and said in a low voice, "There are many great figures in Dragon Lake City watching. It's only a rank 5 mystic immortal, just leave it to the other brothers. There's no need for you to personally make a move and make a joke of yourself." "Exactly." A wolf rider dashed out from within the army. He had a red face and a bald head, and his entire body was filled with strength as he said in a low voice, "Third head, there's no need to use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. Wait for me to take his head and offer it to the two heads." Even though this bald cultivator was at the 5th level of the mystic origin realm, his combat strength was extremely strong, and he completely disregarded his life in battle like a madman. In the vicious wolf army, even some rank 6 mystic immortals weren't willing to enter into conflict with him. The third head exhaled and nodded. "All right, Baldy, I'll give you 10 breaths of time. I want him dead." "Understood." The Baldy replied loudly as he rode on the black-scale devil wolf, and he slapped his storage pouch to withdraw an enormous wolf fang copper rod before charging toward Su Zimo. The cultivators that sent the message from Zuyangu only said that Su Zimo had appeared and led the cultivators to heavily injure the Zuyangu army in the Grand Myriad Mountains. The members of the vicious wolf army were utterly unaware of the exact situation in the Grand Myriad Mountains. They also didn't know that in that battle, Zuyangu's army suffered heavy losses, and almost all of them were caused by one person. If the two leaders of the vicious wolf army knew about this and knew about the scene that occurred in the Eventide workshop earlier, they definitely wouldn't have only dispatched a single level 5 mysterious immortal. The Baldy was extremely confident. Who knew how many 5th stage mystic immortals he had killed? During the battle that brought him fame all those years ago, he'd even risked his life to surmount a realm of cultivation and kill a 6th level mystic immortal. From then on, the Baldy became famous in the wolf army. This Su Zimo in front of him looked so weak that he could not even stand a gust of wind. He must be proficient in some immortal spells and had a weak physical body. As long as he could get close to him, 3 rounds would be enough. Feeling Baldy's intentions, the black-scaled demon wolf beneath him roared once more. Blood chi surged, its 4 limbs exerted strength, and its speed increased once more. In the blink of an eye, Baldy rode the black-scaled demon wolf and rushed in front of Su Zimo. During the entire process, Su Zimo did not react at all. He just stood there motionless, looking at the Baldy who was charging over aggressively. There was not even a ripple in his eyes. F***ck, this person has been scared silly. The third master scolded with a smile. There was no need for Baldy to make a move. Just the accelerated charge of the black-scaled demon wolf was enough to break this person's bones and kill him on the spot. On the city wall. Even if Yu Hao, Duan Tianliang and the others had seen Su Zimo's methods, they could vaguely determine that this person could not threaten Su Zimo. However, their palms were still sweating for Su Zimo. Everyone on the city wall could clearly see that the tall and ferocious black-scaled demon wolf was extremely close to Su Zimo. The latter's black hair was already fluttering. However, Su Zimo was still motionless. Just as the black-scaled demon wolf's bloody mouth was about to make contact with Su Zimo's cheek, Su Zimo suddenly strode forward and leaped up, bending his knee forward. At that moment, Su Zimo's figure was extremely relaxed. It was as though an illusion appeared before the eyes of many cultivators. The green-robed cultivator disappeared and was replaced by a galloping divine steed. Bang! The black-scaled demon wolf and Su Zimo collided heavily. The two of them seemed to be motionless in midair. Compared to the massive figure of the black-scaled demon wolf, Su Zimo looked extremely small. However, in the next moment, under countless gazes, the massive body of the black-scaled demon wolf exploded, turning into countless pieces of flesh and blood. A blood mist filled the air and the stench of blood filled the air. Pissed. Seeing this scene, the sound of cold air being sucked in came from the evil wolf army. The black-scaled demon wolf was a demon beast and was born with a strong physique. Furthermore, it was protected by scales and was invulnerable. To think that it would be smashed into pieces by a seemingly weak cultivator and die on the spot. As for the bald man on the back of the black-scaled demon wolf, he had a shocked expression. He had not expected this to happen and could not control his body, falling forward from midair. All of a sudden, his body paused and he came to a standstill. Instinctively, the bald man looked down. He saw that there was an additional fair hand around his ankle. It was like an iron hoop, locking his ankle in place. Ah! Suddenly, the bald man screamed. This shrill scream was accompanied by the horrifying sound of bones cracking. His ankle was crushed by that person's palm. The bald man nearly fainted from a headache. Before he could react, he felt that he had lost control of his body, and the world in front of him was spinning. Boom! Su Zimo grabbed the bald man's ankle and swung him in a huge semicircle in midair before slamming him heavily on the ground, creating a human-shaped crater. The bald man's tendons and bones were broken and his organs were shattered. There was no way he could survive. On the city walls, many cultivators felt their teeth ache. At this moment, the methods Su Zimo displayed were much more terrifying than what he displayed in Tenebrous Night Workshop. Ferocious, violent, clean and neat. Throughout the entire process, from Su Zimo's attack to the bald man's death, he did not make any unnecessary movements. It was smooth as flowing water. Although this exchange took a long time to describe, the moment the two of them clashed, life and death were determined. The smile on Third Master's face had yet to dissipate as his expression froze. Fourth Master narrowed his eyes and a cold glint flashed through his long and narrow eyes. Su Zimo looked at the wolf army not far away and said indifferently, "There's no need to send such characters to their deaths." "How arrogant! Arrogant bastard, I'll kill you!" This time round, before the two masters could give the order, more than 10 wolf riders in the crowd could not hold back and charged towards Su Zimo. Pumph! Su Zimo harumphed coldly and stomped his foot on the ground. There was a loud boom and the entire ground trembled. The bald man's wolf fang copper rod bounced up and landed in Su Zimo's hands. Immediately after, he transformed into a streak of green light and charged into the crowd. Raising his wolf fang copper rod, he swung it left and right in a wide-open manner. Bang, bang, bang. Blood splattered everywhere on the battlefield. One after another, figures were sent flying by the wolf fang copper rod. By the time they landed on the ground, there were already many bloody holes on their bodies with blood gushing out in an incomparably tragic manner. In the blink of an eye, the dozen-odd wolf soldiers were in a complete mess and were in chaos. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 1849. The destructive power of the wolf fang copper rod was extremely great. In the hands of Su Zimo, it released an extremely terrifying lethality. Even with the powerful bodies of the black-scaled fiend wolves, they would have a few shocking bloody holes after being struck by the wolf fang copper rod. The wolf cavalry charged over quickly but were defeated even faster. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 10 corpses on the ground. The black-scaled fiend wolves were not spared either. They were either pierced by the wolf fang copper rod or smashed until their tendons and bones were broken and their lives were severed. This Su Zimo is truly unafraid of death. To think that he would dare to kill in front of an army of more than 10,000 wolves. So what if he doesn't attack? How can the wolf army let him off after causing such a huge commotion? Many cultivators discussed on the city walls. Commander Lu harumphed softly and said coldly, "It's nothing more than a desperate struggle of a trapped beast." When they heard Commander Lu's unfriendly tone, the discussions in the surroundings gradually became much softer. Below Dragon Lake City. the expressions of the two leaders turned extremely terrible. Losing more than 10 cultivators was not a huge loss for the wolf army. Most importantly, on top of the city walls, the people from the various major forces, the commanders of the city, and the reputable experts of the Long Yuan Star were all watching this scene. The two leaders felt that they could not hold their faces back. Third, don't get entangled with him. The fourth leader frowned and said, if our army charges forward, the black-scaled fiend wolves beneath us will be able to stomp him into meat paste with 1 foot each. All right, we'll do as you say. The third leader pointed at Su Zimo from afar and shouted, kill! Kill! Many members of the wolf army could not hold it in any longer. When they heard the third leader's command, they roared and charged out with excited expressions. The fiend wolves galloped and dust billowed. It was not without reason that the wolf army had roamed unhindered on Dragon Lake Planet for many years and was one of the 4 great bandits. The army of more than 10,000 moved at the same time like a gigantic torrent with a terrifying momentum. It surged forward with an extremely terrifying aura. Even the expressions of the cultivators standing on the city walls changed slightly with wary expressions, let alone those standing below the city walls. Who could be spared from such a torrent? All right. Facing the surging torrent, Su Zimo laughed loudly. His expression was fearless as he said loudly, today, I'll let you all witness my methods. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as he slowly rose into the air. A heart-palpitating aura emanated from between his brows. Suddenly, Su Zimo suddenly opened his mouth and roared at the tens of thousands of evil wolf army soldiers charging over. This howl was like the roar of a dragon and the cry of a phoenix. It was extremely terrifying and emanated boundless might. It was as if it could command all demons and look down upon all living beings. The cultivators spectating the battle on the walls shuddered. At this moment, they even had an illusion. The thing floating in the air was not a person, but an ancient and terrifying beast. Its body was huge, and its wings were flapping. Its entire body was burning with raging flames. The roar of the dragon phoenix. Although Qinglian's true body did not have the bloodline of the dragon phoenix and could not suppress other ferocious beasts with their bloodlines, she had the dragon phoenix essence spirit and could release the aura and roar of the taboo dragon phoenix. The human cultivators in the evil wolf army were still considered normal and were not affected much. After all, with more than 10,000 people gathered together, the howls of wolves were loud and powerful. It was enough to reduce the lethality of the dragon phoenix's roar to the minimum. Some stage 5 mystic immortals only trembled slightly and frowned slightly, feeling a piercing pain in their ears. However, the black-scaled fiend wolves beneath them seemed to be extremely frightened. In the midst of their high-speed gallop, their limbs suddenly went limp and they fell to the ground one after another. All of them had terrified expressions and trembled in fear. Some cultivators rode on the backs of wolves and were caught off guard as they were sent flying and fell to the ground. In an instant, the army of more than 10,000 wolves was in chaos. Get up, you bastard! What are you afraid of? I'm here. Many members of the evil wolf army cursed and urged the black-scaled fiend wolves beneath them. Su Zimo sneered and did not give the evil wolf army a chance. He channeled his mental cultivation technique and activated his essence spirit. Swoosh! Suddenly, 3 balls of flames of different colors rose beside him. Every single flame emitted an extremely terrifying temperature and aura. Black Dao flames were demonic and ghostly. Golden Dao flames were sacred and auspicious. Scarlet Dao flames were scorching hot. Many dermic arts of the lower realm were difficult to release in the upper realm. That was because once these dermic arts fused with heaven and earth essence chi, the level of the dermic arts was not high enough and could not withstand the heaven and earth essence chi and would immediately dissipate. However, the 3 Dao flames that Su Zimo cultivated were different. For the past 10 years, Su Zimo had tried to fuse heaven and earth essence chi into the 3 Dao flames. Not only did the Dao flames not extinguish, they even fused perfectly with the essence chi. The more they burned, the more terrifying their power became. In reality, the Samadhi Dao fire that Su Zimo cultivated had long separated itself from its original dermic art. Along the way, Su Zimo had dabbled in the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Dao techniques and had extremely deep attainments. These 3 Dao fires had already fused with his cultivation and his foundation. The deeper one's cultivation in the immortal Dao, the greater the power of the immortal Dao fire. It was the same for the Buddhist and fiend Dao flames. The strength of the 3 Dao fires would increase along with the growth of his cultivation. For example, right now, among the 3 Dao flames, the power of the Buddhist Dao fire was clearly stronger than the immortal and fiend Dao flames. That was because the golden Buddhist Dao fire contained the profundities of the perfection of Nirvana Sutra. Although there was still a distance between Su Zimo and the evil wolf army, many of them could already feel the terrifying heat. In a few breaths, the faces of the evil wolf army were flushed red and they were drenched in sweat. Some of the evil wolf army could not take it and even took off their heavy armor. On the city walls, a look of pleasant surprise flashed through Yan Fei's eyes as he nodded slightly and praised, "The grade of this Dao flame immortal art is probably not low." Commander Lu was expressionless and did not say a word. Jiang Li of Heaven Fire Hall had a grim expression. The reason why Heaven Fire Hall was able to gain a foothold on Dragon Abyss Planet was because they specialized in the Dao of Fire. Her father possessed a cultivation technique known as the Heavenly Fire Dao technique. It was superior grade yellow grade and extremely powerful. Jiang Li had inherited her father's legacy and was well versed in this Dao. However, the moment Su Zimo's 3 balls of flames appeared, Jiang Li realized that each of the 3 balls of flames was superior to the Heavenly Fire Dao technique that he cultivated. The cultivation technique that this person cultivates is at least low-grade mystic grade. It's extremely likely that it's superior grade. Jiang Li murmured softly. Just as she said that, Su Zimo waved his hands beneath Dragon Abyss City. The 3 balls of flames of different colors collided together and formed a gigantic fireball that was even hotter. The temperature between heaven and earth rose suddenly. It was as though a blazing sun had fallen beneath Dragon Abyss City, causing flames to surge into the heavens. Under the illumination of the flames, Jiang Li's face was pale. With a shocked expression, he said with a trembling voice, "This cultivation technique, could it be an earth grade?" End of chapter. Chapter 1850. One had to know that on the Dragon Abyss Planet, be it the Heaven Fire Hall or the other powerful factions, none of them had the chance to come into contact with high-grade cultivation techniques or secret skills. The cultivation techniques that the various factions could cultivate were at most high-grade yellow grade. Only some of the commanders and exalted immortals in Dragon Abyss City had the chance to cultivate black-grade cultivation techniques. Earth-grade cultivation techniques were something that even the City Lord of Dragon Abyss City did not have the chance to come into contact with, let alone the cultivators of the various major factions. Therefore, when Jiang Li saw the formation of this gigantic fireball, she felt such intense shock. Not to mention her, even the hearts of the various commanders on the city walls and the guards of Dragon Lake City shook. A trace of greed flashed through the eyes of many Dragon Abyss City guards as they were tempted. If this cultivation technique of the Dao of Fire was truly earth grade, it would have an irresistible attraction to them. At that moment, the people on the city walls had yet to realize that the fireball that Su Zimo condensed was not the final form of this immortal technique. Below Dragon Abyss City, the black-scaled fiend wolves were intimidated by the roar of the dragon phoenix. They trembled and did not dare to get up. More than 10,000 cultivators of the wolf army leaped down and roared, charging toward Su Zimo with murderous intent. However, when Su Zimo's Samadhi Dao fire condensed into this fireball, the wolf army stopped in their tracks. It was not because of fear, but because they were truly unable to take another step forward. The gigantic fireball in front of them was like a scorching sun. It was red and burned with flames, emitting a terrifying temperature. The sweat on the bodies of the wolf army evaporated the moment it seeped out, turning into water vapor. They could already feel the stinging heat on their faces. Their lips were dry and cracked and the blood in their bodies seemed to be evaporating. The small group of wolf army soldiers that were charging at the front were even more miserable as they could not stop in time. At that moment, the armor on the bodies of the wolf army soldiers had already melted, turning into scalding red molten iron that flowed down their bodies slowly. The wolf army soldiers let out shrill cries. In the boiling molten iron, the bodies of the wolf army also burst into flames. In a few breaths, they were burned to ashes. Just as the vicious wolf army was hesitating, the fourth leader suddenly shouted coldly, "There are so many of us. Each of us has one immortal spell, one magic treasure, and one magic treasure. We can also shatter that fireball." All the members of the vicious wolf army reacted successively, and they each formed seals and divine abilities, withdrew their magic treasures, and accumulated strength while waiting to attack. "Kill!" The fourth head gave the order. Boom, 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 bush, bush, bush. Immortal arts surged and divine abilities descended. One by one, magic treasures tore through the void and struck the huge fireball in front of them. Everyone only had one goal, and that was to shatter this fireball. The corners of Su Zimo's mouth curled up. His expression was cold as he shouted, "Good timing!" Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo pushed with both hands and rolled the gigantic fireball in front of him towards the wolf army. At the same time, his glabella shone and a scarlet flame burst forth, entering the gigantic fireball. Essence Spirit Fire. It was formed by the Kacharati Dao fire. To be precise, apart from the flames of Qinglian's essence spirit, the essence spirit fire also contained the flames of the dragon phoenix essence spirit, and its power increased exponentially. The moment the fireball collided with the divine abilities, immortal arts, and dharma treasures, it expanded more than 10 times, and its temperature rose rapidly as flames surged into the skies. Instantly, it was as though there were no other living beings in the world except for this blazing sun. The Kacharati Dao fire was formed and illuminated the entire night sky like it was daytime. The fireball expanded more than 10 times and devoured the hundreds of vicious wolf army soldiers closest to it. The vicious wolf army could not react at all. Before they could even scream, they were burned into nothingness by the fireball, and their bodies and spirits were destroyed. Pissed. On the city wall, many cultivators were shocked and dumbfounded. No one expected that the fireball formed by the three flames just now was not the peak of the immortal art's power. The fireball now was several times stronger than the one formed just now. Jiang Li was completely speechless and had a blank expression. He could only widen his eyes and look at the scene below the city in disbelief. Could this immortal art be a superior grade earth grade, or impossible? Impossible. Jiang Li shook his head and did not dare to continue thinking. Yan Fei's expression was grim as he said in a low voice, "Given the power of this cultivation technique, it's probably at least a superior grade earth grade. Furthermore, it's extremely likely to be a heaven grade one." At that point, the crowd was in an uproar. A heaven grade cultivation technique was almost a legendary treasure. Only the palace of Great Jin had such a powerful cultivation technique. "Impossible," Commander Lu said resolutely. "A heaven-grade cultivation technique is an incredible treasure. How can a Stage 5 mystic immortal come into contact with it? Not to mention that he can't come into contact with it, even if we give it to him to cultivate, he won't be able to comprehend it. His mortal body won't be able to withstand it." Although he said that, Commander Lu's gaze became a little fervent. No matter what, even if this immortal art was not a heaven grade, it was definitely an earth grade. If he could cultivate this immortal art to greater mastery, wouldn't he also have the combat strength to kill those of a higher level? Retreat. Hurry and retreat. The third head had already realized that something was wrong and shouted at the top of his lungs. However, it was already too late. The tens of thousands of soldiers of the evil wolf army attacked. Many immortal arts, divine abilities, and dharma treasures tore through the air and covered the sky. No matter how strong Su Zimo's Kacharati Dao fire was, it could not withstand such power. That huge fireball was shattered by the combined efforts of the tens of thousands of soldiers of the evil wolf army. At that moment, the disaster had just begun. The fireball broke into pieces and turned into countless streaks of fiery light. It was like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, surging in all directions and sprinkling into the crowd. Even if the evil wolf army was a Stage 6 mystic immortal, They could not withstand the flames and were burned to ashes on the spot, dying without a complete corpse. Countless flames connected and formed a huge sea of fire that engulfed the evil wolf army. Countless soldiers of the evil wolf army struggled, screamed, ran, and cried for help in the sea of fire. This scene was simply like a fiery hell. Countless living beings struggled in this hell, but they were never able to escape. On the city wall, the faces of many cultivators turned pale. Their eyes flickered with fear. Such a method was truly terrifying in the hands of a Stage 5 mystic immortal. The third head and the fourth head widened their eyes and their faces were pale. They did not go forward, so they were not injured by the Kacharati Dao fire. Even at the edge of the scorching sea of fire, the two of them still felt a complete chill. Gone. Everything was gone. The tens of thousands of soldiers of the evil wolf army were almost completely burned to death by this terrifying flame. Across the sea of fire, the green figure in midair was like a devil that had crawled out of hell. End of chapter. Chapter 1851. On the city wall. All the cultivators that saw this scene were shocked and moved. The vicious wolf army had roamed freely on Dragon Lake Star for many years. As one of the 4 great bandits, they'd even annihilated 3 great powers. They were ferocious, cruel, and killed people like flies. When had they ever suffered such a huge setback? This time, the 2 leaders of the vicious wolf army had mustered a large force and personally led an army of over 10,000 to deal with a rank 5 mystic immortal. They wanted to be absolutely sure and used this to establish their might. But who would have thought that the moment this battle erupted, it would actually be the situation before their eyes? No matter the outcome of today's battle, even if the 2 leaders of the vicious wolf army were to kill Su Zimo in their rage, the vicious wolf army would still be defeated. Su Wan looked at the vicious wolf army that was struggling in the sea of flames below and said softly, "The cycle of the heavenly Tao, retribution, is not pleasant. I presume that today is the vicious wolf army's retribution." Everyone was silent. All these years, the vicious wolf army had burned, killed, and plundered countless people. They'd committed countless crimes. Even though the scene before Dragon Lake City was extremely miserable, everyone didn't have the slightest bit of pity towards the vicious wolf army. Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow, who'd followed Su Zimo for 10 years, grimaced as they watched. Yu Hao and the others were even more shocked in their hearts. They originally thought that they already had a very deep understanding of Su Zimo's methods. But now, the 3 of them realized that what they knew might only be the tip of the iceberg. Commander Lu was expressionless. He'd called everyone over to watch the battle on the city wall with the intention of seeing how Su Zimo was tortured and killed. But he'd never imagined that it would be the current situation. Of course, Commander Lu faintly felt a wave of excitement in his heart. This immortal technique was too powerful. If he was able to obtain this immortal technique, then losing the bet today was nothing. The Burning Sea Heavenly Pattern technique that he'd lent to Yen Fei was only a low-grade profound rank technique. Compared to this immortal technique before him, it was simply the difference between the clouds and mud. In the crowd, Zhuyangu Protector Shui heaved a sigh of relief and said in his heart that he was lucky. Fortunately, he didn't act rashly. With his ability, it was naturally impossible for him to die under this immortal technique. But even so, he would be burned to an extremely sorry state. But now, he didn't have any misgivings. In addition to him, the cultivators of the other factions were restless too. Everyone from the various factions was still coveting the Suo Luo leaf in Su Zimo's storage bag. Noticing this, Su Wan frowned and looked worried. The blue-robed woman from the thunder-shaking hall shook her head and said softly, "Even if his immortal arts are shocking, this person will not be able to escape death today. The power of this immortal art is so shocking. It must consume a lot of energy. With his cultivation at the 5th level of the mysterious Yuan stage, I'm sure he's extremely weak right now and is just an arrow at the end of its flight." Su Wan sighed softly. This was exactly what she was worried about. If she and the blue-dressed woman could think of it, then the people of the other forces would definitely be able to guess it as well. The 2 leaders of the vicious wolf army would naturally be able to see it as well. Normally speaking, releasing the Kachirati Dao fire with all his might would indeed consume a lot of Su Zimo's essence spirit. However, no one knew that Su Zimo's essence spirit was not at the 5th level of the mysterious Yuan stage, but the 7th. He cultivated the perfection of Wisdom Nirvana Sutra and fused with the essence spirits of the Dragon Phoenix and Qinglian. With the help of the power of illumination and nether fluorescence, his essence spirit was even more condensed and terrifying than the essence spirits of ordinary Class 7 mystic immortals. The release of the Kachirati Dao fire did not have much of an impact on him. The sea of fire gradually receded. Some of the Class 6 mystic immortals of the Vicious Wolf Army were charred black and unrecognizable. They relied on their respective trump cards and life-saving methods to barely survive. The two leaders had grim expressions as they did a rough count. There were only a few hundred survivors of the Vicious Wolf Army. Even more of the Vicious Wolf Army died in the Sea of Fire. That fire reduced the army of more than 10,000 to less than 1,000. More than half of the 10,000 black-scaled fiend wolves were dead. The remaining wolves had long scattered and fled without a trace. The remaining few hundred soldiers of the Vicious Wolf Army were almost all seriously injured. The fire poison entered their bodies and they all sat on the ground, coughing up black ashes. Their expressions were terrified and they had already lost their ability to fight. It was too tragic. Even if a great battle broke out with the various major forces on Dragon Abyss Planet, the Vicious Wolf Army would not end up like this. But now, all of this was done by one person. Su Zimo. The third leader's eyes were red as he roared, "I'm going to kill you and use your blood as a sacrifice to my dead brother Vicious Wolf." The third leader held the four-edged golden hammer with both hands and gritted his teeth. With a ferocious expression, he strode towards Su Zimo. He was worried that if Su Zimo roared again, the black-scaled fiend wolf under him would be scared to the ground and become a burden to him. Therefore, he might as well give up on using it. The fourth leader's face was as cold as ice. Without saying a word, he also floated down from the back of the black-scaled fiend wolf. With small steps, his right hand held the hilt of the saber at his waist. He bent down slightly and sped towards Su Zimo. "Umph." Su Zimo sneered slightly. Standing in the air, he looked down at the third leader who was charging over and said coldly, "You still want to kill me? Today, I'll make the both of you die in Dragon Abyss City." Swoosh. Su Zimo's figure moved and he suddenly burst forth, diving down. "Die!" The third leader was completely fearless. Raising the four-edged golden hammer in his hand, he circulated his blood chi and smashed it fiercely towards Su Zimo who was charging down. Su Zimo was still in midair when his glabella shone and a bronze square cauldron flew out. Reaching out, he grabbed the bronze square cauldron and swung it in a semicircle, smashing it heavily towards the third leader's four-edged golden hammer. Clang! The four-edged golden hammer and the bronze square cauldron collided, letting out an ear-piercing sound. A visible airwave suddenly burst forth between the two Dharma treasures and spread towards the surroundings. Worried that Qinglian's bloodline would be recognized, Su Zimo did not use his blood chi when he attacked this time round. Even so, with the strength of his dive, Qinglian's physique and the power of the bronze square cauldron, he still had the upper hand in this head-on clash. Su Zimo descended from the skies like a god with a divine might and an insufferably arrogant aura. The third leader shuddered and retreated half a step. A tremendous force came crashing down. His entire foot had already sunk into the ground. The third leader's eyes were filled with shock and horror. He could not imagine that such a terrifying, ferocious power could be released from this seemingly frail body. Again! Su Zimo did not give the third leader a chance to catch his breath. Raising the bronze square cauldron, he smashed it down once more. The third leader could only swing the other four-edged golden hammer and receive it. Clang! Another deafening sound echoed. The third leader grunted and his teeth loosened, bleeding from the impact. Both his arms were trembling and aching. Instinctively, his gaze landed on his four-edged golden hammer and his pupils constricted. With those two collisions, the two lines on his four-edged golden hammer were flattened by the broken bronze cauldron. The third leader did not know that if it was any other weapon such as sabers, spears, swords and halberds, it would have been broken by the bronze square cauldron. Thank you for Xiao Wu's reward. End of chapter. Chapter 1852. This third brother of the vicious wolf army is adept in body refinement techniques and possesses boundless strength. I never imagined that this Su Zimo who looks extremely weak is actually able to go head-on with the third brother of the vicious wolf army and not fall into a disadvantageous position. A commander of Dragon Lake City exclaimed with admiration. Another person said in a low voice, I reckon that this kid has cultivated some sort of formidable body refinement technique as well. Otherwise, it's absolutely impossible for him to surmount 2 levels and go against a 7th-level mysterious immortal. This person didn't say it clearly, but many people were able to guess that the grade of this body refinement technique would absolutely not be low. Even if he possesses some brute force, it's useless. The fourth brother of the vicious wolf army's saber technique is treacherous, soft, and extremely vicious. It's extremely difficult for this kid to resist the joint forces of the two of them. As soon as he finished speaking, a change had already occurred in the battlefield below Dragon Lake City. Su Zimo and the third brother had successively collided head-on with each other twice, and the fourth brother had already arrived by Su Zimo's side. Clang! The saber left its sheath, and a cold light flashed as it slashed down towards Su Zimo's neck. No one was able to see the appearance of this saber clearly, but they saw a saber light flicker with an extremely swift speed, and it practically arrived in an instant. Kill! At the same time, the third brother once again raised the four-edged golden hammer and smashed it fiercely towards Su Zimo who stood before him. The two leaders made a move at practically the same time, and they cooperated with tacit understanding as they launched a pincer attack that caused one's heart to palpitate. Su Zimo's expression was fearless, and there wasn't the slightest trace of panic in his eyes as he raised the bronze square cauldron with his left hand and smashed it towards the four-edged golden hammer that assaulted his face. At the same time, he stretched out his right hand and didn't even look before relying on his unfathomable spirit sense to grab towards the cold light that slashed towards him with his bare hands. I want one of your hands. The fourth brother sneered lightly, and a wisp of complacency and delight flashed past his narrow and long eyes. On the city wall, Yan Fei shook his head lightly when he saw this scene, and he sighed lightly in his heart. No matter how strong one's body refinement was, one couldn't use one's body to go head-on against the weapons and magic treasures of the enemy, as this was a great taboo in a battle between cultivators. Commander Lu said directly, "This hand is gone." Bang! On the battlefield, the bronze square cauldron once again collided with the four-edged golden hammer. The third head's body shuddered violently as the bones in his body began to crack. It felt like his body was about to fall apart. On the other side, Su Zimo's palm had also come into contact with the descending cold light. Under normal circumstances, the palms of body-tempering cultivators would be filled with calluses and their skin would be rough. This palm was fair and tender, with long and slender fingers. It was extremely beautiful, even better than the skin of a newborn baby. With such a delicate palm, not to mention resisting a sharp weapon or magic treasure, even if it were to knock or touch it, it would likely break open a hole. However, the moment this palm landed on the sharp blade, it suddenly became soft. With a curl and a tremor, it erupted with an extremely terrifying force. Crack! The sound of metal shattering resounded. On the city wall, countless cultivators were watching this scene, and their expressions changed greatly. The saber in the fourth head's hand was shattered into pieces by Su Zimo's palm, which shattered the saber into pieces. On the other hand, Su Zimo's palm was completely unscathed. How is that possible? Is he wearing some sort of Dharma treasure on his palm? A series of exclamations sounded from the city walls. Before everyone could recover from their shock, a change happened on the battlefield. Although the saber shattered, the fourth head did not retreat. Instead, he growled deeply and strode forward, stabbing forward. "There's a blade in the saber." Yan Fei's gaze flickered as he exclaimed softly. Everyone focused their gazes and saw that the fourth head was still wielding a sharp saber. It was pitch black and looked like a broken saber. As it turned out, there was another broken saber hidden within the fourth head's saber. If not for the fact that Su Zimo shattered the saber, nobody would have noticed the existence of the broken saber. This turn of events had exceeded Su Zimo's expectations as well. When he saw the pitch-black broken saber piercing over, Su Zimo instinctively reached out to grab it. The moment his palm collided with the pitch-black broken saber, Su Zimo's expression changed. Something's not right. Su Zimo was shocked. The sharpness of this broken saber can injure Qinglian's true body. Although he was at Mystic Origin Stage 5, Qinglian's true body was indestructible. Almost no Mystic Origin Stage Dharma treasure could injure her. However, the fourth head only had a broken saber in his hand. It was obviously an abandoned Dharma treasure. Yet it had pierced his palm. At the same time, just now, a familiar vibration came from the bronze. This broken saber is a psychic Dharma treasure. This thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. However, when he realized this, the pitch-black sharp saber pierced his palm. At this moment, even if he used Heaven's Feet and other divine abilities, it was already too late. It would be difficult for him to dodge the sharp saber. A smile appeared on the fourth head's face as if he had succeeded in his scheme. Back then he had accidentally obtained this broken saber and treated it like a treasure. Although this pitch-black broken saber was an abandoned Dharma treasure, the remaining half was still extremely sharp. It could even easily cut through high-grade Mystic Origin Stage Dharma treasures. However, this pitch-black broken saber could not fuse with Heaven and Earth Essence Chi after all. The power it could unleash was limited and could only be used as a surprise attack. Therefore, the fourth head spent a lot of effort to hide this pitch-black broken saber in a long saber and carry it with him. All these years, this pitch-black broken saber had performed miraculous feats. Those who had seen this pitch-black broken saber had already died under this broken saber. The fourth head saw clearly that the pitch-black broken saber had already pierced Su Zimo's palm. Even if this person had any other trump cards, he could still completely cripple this person's palm. In a flash, Su Zimo activated his essence spirit and released a secret technique. His entire body flickered and disappeared from the spot. The fourth head's pupils suddenly constricted. Before his eyes, the green-robed cultivator had mysteriously disappeared into thin air without any warning. How is this possible? The pitch-black broken saber in the fourth head's hand stabbed into empty air. There was nothing there. The fourth head could be considered as someone who had experienced hundreds of battles. However, he had never seen such a situation before. Was he seeing a ghost? Immediately after, another question flashed through the fourth head's mind. Where did this person go after vanishing to? The entire battlefield seemed to have fallen into silence. Even the sounds of discussion and chatter on the city walls seemed to vanish in an instant. Before the fourth head could think of an answer, the third head, who was not far away, suddenly widened his eyes and looked behind the fourth head with a shocked expression, as though he had seen something extremely terrifying. The third head opened his mouth and moved, as though he wanted to say something to remind the fourth head. However, it was already too late. The fourth master heard a familiar voice beside his ear. It was calm and cold. "If you want a hand of mine, I'll take your life." That voice was right in front of him. In fact, the fourth head could even feel the warm breath of the person behind him. A bone-chilling coldness surged and covered his entire body. Bang! The next moment he felt a sharp pain in his head. His consciousness exploded and his essence spirit was shattered instantly as well. His consciousness dissipated and his gaze was blank as he collapsed stiffly. He was dead. End of chapter. Chapter 1853. The fourth head of the wolf army was caught in the situation. Even at the moment of his death, he did not understand how Su Zimo had disappeared into thin air and appeared behind him. Not to mention him, even the people on the city wall who were not part of the situation were shocked. They did not know what had happened just now. What's going on? Was that teleportation? Impossible. Teleportation is a peerless ability. How can a profound stage use it? But that Su Zimo did disappear into thin air and appeared behind the fourth head of the wolf army. After a short silence, a wave of voices erupted from the crowd. The various commanders of Dragon Lake City had surprised and bewildered expressions as well. One had to know that most of them were native exalted immortals. They were experienced and knowledgeable, much stronger than the people of the various large factions. However, even they could not see how Su Zimo had disappeared and appeared behind the fourth head just now. In fact, not to mention exalted immortals like them, even the Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals of the Great Gene Country would not be able to recognize the origin of this movement technique. This was the top-secret technique of the dragons. There were many dragons in the dragon world, but there were not many who were qualified to cultivate this true dragon's 9 flashes. What happened just now? Commander Lu frowned and said in a low voice, "Could it be a minor ability, teleportation?" "It doesn't look like it." Another commander shook his head and said, "Even if it's teleportation, someone has to exchange positions with Su Zimo. But just now, this person disappeared into thin air and appeared behind the fourth head of the wolf army to kill him. Could this be some kind of movement technique?" The expressions of the commanders of Dragon Lake Planet were somewhat solemn. Just now, if they were to exchange positions with the fourth head of the wolf army, it would probably be difficult for them to react to this move. This was a little terrifying. Originally, in their eyes, this Su Zimo below the city wall was an ant that they could casually crush to death. But now, everyone realized that this ant actually had the means to threaten them. "Fellow Taoists, please help us." At this moment, the third commander of the vicious wolf army suddenly shouted to the people on the city wall, "Whoever can help me kill this person, my vicious wolf army is willing to give 1,000,000 core condensing pills." The bounty on his head had increased from 100,000 to 1,000,000. The third head already realized that if he didn't ask for help, he would also die here. Only with the assistance of the experts from the various factions on the city walls would they have a chance to kill this person. With a generous reward, there would definitely be brave men. Moreover, all the major factions had their eyes on the Sua Luo leaves in Su Zimo's storage pouch. The value of this leaf was much more valuable than 1,000,000 essence condensing pills. "Everyone from the Sky Scorpion stronghold, heed my orders." The young master of the Sky Scorpion Citadel suddenly sent a telepathic message through his consciousness. "I don't care if he's dead or alive, but we must snatch his storage bag." "Understood." The people of the Sky Scorpion Stockade agreed. The old man behind the young master of the Sky Scorpion Citadel, a rank 7 mystic immortal, said in a low voice, "Young master, you don't have to go down. I'll lead these dozen people." The young master of the Sky Scorpion Citadel hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Uncle Jiang, I'll leave it to you." "Don't worry, young master." The old man called Uncle Jiang said, "This kid has been fighting for so long, so he should have used up most of his trump cards. He's no longer a threat, so there's nothing to fear. Let's go." Uncle Jiang waved his hand lightly and led the dozen rank 6 mystic immortals of the Sky Scorpion Citadel down the city wall. Almost at the same time, cultivators from the Sky Fiend sect, Skyfire Hall, and Profound Light sect flashed out and descended the city wall, rushing towards the battlefield. Only the Twin Dragons sect and the Thunderquake Hall chose to bide their time. The Twin Dragons sect's Su Wan wanted to befriend Su Zimo, so she naturally couldn't kick him while he was down. The other cultivators of the Thunderquake Hall wanted to attack, but they were stopped by the blue-dressed woman. The blue-dressed woman vaguely had a premonition that it was best not to get involved in this mess today. Among the 8 major forces of the Dragon Abyss planet, the Xianggu army had long been intercepted and killed by Su Zimo in the 100,000 Mountains. The people of the Mystic Een Mountain had also been slaughtered by Su Zimo in the Eventide Workshop. Even the young master of the Mystic Een Mountain had died. Other than these 4 forces, the Sky Scorpion Citadel, Profound Light sect, Skyfire Hall, and Sky Fiend sect of the 8 major forces had rushed to the battlefield, wanting to take advantage of the situation and seize the treasures. These 4 forces were led by the personal guards of the young master, for rank 7 mystic immortals. Including the third leader of the Vicious Wolf Army, there were 5 rank 7 mystic immortals. Behind them, there were dozens of rank 6 mystic immortals. These cultivators didn't seem to be many in number, and they were far less powerful than the Vicious Wolf Army, but they were extremely strong. Everyone knew that the flames that burned the vicious wolf army just now consumed too much energy. Su Zimo couldn't release it a second time in a short period of time. Even if he could release it, the 5 rank 7 mystic immortals would be able to completely suppress the flames if they joined forces. Su Zimo sensed this scene and was completely unmoved. He only sneered slightly and didn't even look at them. With a light tap of his foot, he took the 4th leader's storage bag and the jet-black broken blade in his hand. This jet-black broken blade was a spiritual Dharma treasure. Although it had been abandoned, it was still very useful to him. Su Zimo was secretly delighted and kept the jet-black broken blade in his storage bag. In just a short while, the cultivators of the Sky Scorpion Citadel, Profound Light Sect, and the rest of the 4 major forces had all arrived and surrounded Su Zimo. Fellow Taoists, in a battle later, the 5 of us will join forces and fight this kid head-on. Uncle Jiang said in a deep voice. The rest of you don't have to go forward. Stand outside and look for an opportunity to attack with all your might. But the rank 7 mystic immortals of the Profound Light Sect and the other forces nodded. The 3rd leader of the Vicious Wolf Army naturally had no objections. What's wrong? Su Zimo was surrounded, but he didn't panic at all. Instead, he looked even more arrogant. He looked around and sneered. The few of you want to join forces with the Vicious Wolf Army? The rank 7 mystic immortals of the various major forces were silent. They only looked coldly at Su Zimo and were on guard. They didn't want to suffer a huge setback at this time. This green-robed cultivator had many trump cards and his methods were strange and unpredictable. Even if they had the advantage in numbers, they still didn't dare to be careless. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. Very well. Since you want to take advantage of the situation, don't blame me for killing. Although Su Zimo was smiling, his words sent chills down everyone's spines. Arrogant kid, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Uncle Jiang shouted, let me tell you, a rank 5 mystic immortal like you can't make the decision on this Dragon Abyss planet. It's not your place to be arrogant. As soon as he said that, the 5 rank 7 mystic immortals attacked at the same time. The 3rd leader of the Vicious Wolf Army swallowed a crimson pill and his aura suddenly became extremely violent. His eyes were crimson red as he roared and charged toward Su Zimo. Uncle Jiang formed an immortal art and activated his primordial spirit. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. He shouted, Heavenly Scorpion descend. This mouthful of essence blood was hundreds of years of cultivation. Uncle Jiang went all out the moment he attacked. Chapter 1854. This blood essence rapidly evolved in midair, condensing into a huge scorpion that was over 100 feet long. Its tail was curved, and its poisonous stinger hung above its head. It charged straight at Su Zimo. Myriad Manifestation Fist. The stage 7 mystic immortal from the Heaven Fiend sect circulated his blood chi and rushed over. He condensed his essence chi and punched at Su Zimo. This person was clearly wearing a mystic glove on his fist. When he punched out, a myriad manifestation appeared. There were layers of ghostly shadows and a baleful aura that made one's heart palpitate. Mystic light imprisonment. The stage 7 mystic immortal from the Profound Light sect was a beautiful woman. She waved her hands, and strands of mysterious light shot out from her fingertips. The power of divine power spread. Immediately after, chains that emitted divine light appeared on Su Zimo's body. There were mysterious runes engraved on them, and they wrapped around his limbs and constantly contracted. Heavenly fire. The stage 7 mystic immortal from the Heaven Fire Hall condensed an immortal art and pointed a finger at Su Zimo's head. Boom! A huge pillar of fire fell from the sky and smashed down at Su Zimo. The 5 stage 7 mystic immortals attacked with all their might. Immortal arts and divine powers erupted, and they attacked from afar. They coordinated well and instantly sealed off all of Su Zimo's escape routes. This attack was much more terrifying than the previous attack by the 2 leaders of the Vicious Wolf Army. This time, the 3rd leader and the Heaven Fiend sect's stage 7 mystic immortal were in close combat. In the distance, the stage 7 mystic immortals from the Sky Scorpion stronghold, Profound Light sect, and Heaven Fire Hall also used their immortal arts and divine powers. They surged forward with terrifying momentum. Su Zimo frowned slightly. After all, his cultivation realm was much lower than the five of them. Now, he did not dare to use his blood chi. Although he still had the upper hand in close combat, it was very difficult for him to win in a short period of time. The Heaven-Slaying Sword art and Earth-Slaying Sword art's destructive power was extremely terrifying. But once the sword chi was scattered, it might not be able to pose much of a threat to the Stage 7 Mystic Immortals. Kill! Right at this moment, the few tens of rank 6 mysterious immortals that were lingering at the edge of the battlefield made a move successively. They withdrew their respective magic treasures and divine abilities, and they covered the heavens and the earth as they descended. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as he activated his essence spirit once more and released an innate divine power. On both sides of his back, 2 huge white tusks suddenly grew out. They were ferocious and sharp, as if they could pierce through everything and pierce through the void. Innate divine ability, 6 Fangs godly power. On Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo had already comprehended the innate ability to its peak. Once it was unleashed, the power of the 6 divine elephants would grow. His strength would increase by 6 times. However, in the upper realm, due to the limitations of the order. In addition, releasing this innate ability was extremely taxing on one's primordial spirit. Even with Su Zimo's 7th-level Mystic Origin Stage cultivation, he could barely release 2 divine elephant tusks. Even so, his strength had increased by more than 2 times in an instant. Not only had his physical strength increased greatly, even the power of his origin spirit had risen greatly, as if it had come into contact with another level. What is this? Why have I never seen this divine power before? Why do I feel that this lad's aura has increased by a lot? It's as if he's become a different person. Everyone on the city wall was shocked. Look, what's that? Many cultivators focused their gazes and saw a gigantic divine elephant vaguely appear behind Su Zimo. It had 6 ivory tusks that were as white as jade, and its entire body emitted a heavy and majestic pressure. When the divine elephant tusks descended, the many cultivators on Dragon Lake City felt an inexplicable sense of palpitations and wanted to bow down and worship it. Even the rank 8 mystic immortals present, Commander Lu and the others were shocked. This 6-tusked divine elephant was like an ancient deity. When it descended on Dragon Lake Planet, it was as if the planet could not withstand the heavy pressure brought about by the divine elephant tusks and trembled slightly. Su Zimo suddenly opened his mouth and howled into the sky. At the same time, the divine elephant phantom behind him swung its trunk and howled into the sky, letting out a resounding and furious roar. Bang, bang, bang. Instantly, the mystic light chains on Su Zimo's body broke and turned into nothingness. At the same time, Su Zimo waved his sleeves and raised a handful of yellow sand. The yellow sand scattered and shone with a golden light, forming a gigantic yellow sand barrier that blocked the Dharma treasures and divine abilities of the dozens of rank 6 mystic immortals. This was a supreme treasure created by the rank 9 creation Qinglian. Not many people in this world knew what changes would happen to the rank 9 creation Qinglian. Back in Tianhuang mainland, even Dai Yu only said that the Qinglian would have an even greater creation later on. However, she did not know the details. Therefore, Su Zimo was not worried that others would recognize him when he released the 9 Heavens Breath soil. At the same time, Su Zimo raised the bronze square cauldron with his left hand and suppressed the 3rd head in front of him. Clenching his right hand tightly, he did not turn back and punched in reverse towards the myriad manifestations fist of Heaven Fiend sect. Boom! There was a loud explosion almost at the same time. The 3rd head's body shuddered as he felt a terrifying and ferocious power surge into his body through the 4-edged golden hammer. Even with his physique, he could not withstand it. This power was much stronger than the power released by Su Zimo initially. The 3rd head shrieked tragically. The bronze square cauldron sent the 4-edged golden hammer in his hands flying. He could not hold on to it at all as his palm was torn and blood flowed out. The 4-edged golden hammer that was sent flying also contained an extremely terrifying power. It turned into a golden light and crashed into the crowd outside. Two rank 6 mystic immortals could not dodge in time and were struck by the golden light. They were smashed into pieces on the spot and died in a mist of blood. On the other side, fists collided. The rank 7 mystic immortal of Heaven Fiend sect even had a black-grade Dharma treasure on his fist and released the Myriad Manifestations Fist Immortal technique. However, the Myriad Manifestations Ghost Shadow was smashed into pieces by Qinglian's real body. The expression of the rank 7 mystic immortal of Heaven Fiend sect also changed drastically. The clothes on his arm were instantly torn apart by the violent power that surged in. His arm was already covered with bloody cracks. It was obvious that this happened because he could not withstand the power of Su Zimo's punch. This person stared at his arm with a pained expression and let out a low growl from the depths of his throat. Bang! Immediately after, under countless gazes, this arm exploded and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. In the blink of an eye, only a few pieces of eerie white bones were left outside, dangling casually. The intense pain stimulated this person's mind and he almost fainted on the spot. At this moment, he caught a glimpse of a white light from the corner of his eye. Immediately after, an extremely sharp aura arrived in an instant. Killing intent burst forth, and this person felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, his entire body turning cold. Oh no! This word flashed across the mind of the rank 7 mystic immortal of Heaven Fiend sect. In the next moment, a wisp of white sword chi entered his forehead. A bloody hole appeared in between this person's eyebrows and scarlet blood flowed out. The rank 7 mystic immortal of Heaven Fiend sect had fallen. End of chapter. Chapter 1855. The moment Su Zimo sent the Class 7 mystic immortal of Heaven Fiend sect retreating with a punch, he flicked his finger gently and released a heaven-slaying sword chi. A single strand of sword chi had killed this person. Right then, the heavenly fire descended. Su Zimo tossed the bronze square tripod in his hands upwards and hovered above his head. During the tribulation, the bronze square tripod had already established a connection with Su Zimo's essence spirit after being tempered by heaven and earth essence chi. In Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo could only swing the bronze square tripod and smash people back and forth. However, at that moment, he could already control the treasure preliminarily. The bronze square tripod hovered above Su Zimo's head. Although 3 sides were still filled with cracks, the side that was intact emitted a mysterious and ancient glow. That ball of crimson fire fell with a terrifying momentum and heavily crashed into the bronze square cauldron. The two collided, but there was not much of a commotion. The fiery light fell with great momentum, but it was silently neutralized by the bronze square cauldron. The bronze square tripod did not budge at all. However, the scarlet beam of light collapsed and turned into countless sparks that splattered everywhere. Su Zimo stood beneath the bronze square tripod and was safe and sound without a single spark. At that moment, the gigantic scorpion formed from Uncle Zhang's essence blood had already closed in. It waved its pincers and swung its tail, piercing towards Su Zimo with its poisonous stinger. Humph! The ancient tripod hovered above Su Zimo's head and sneered. He channeled his divine power and pointed at the gigantic scorpion, hollering softly, "Hell Dao!" Instantly, hell descended. It was sinister and terrifying as blood chi filled the air and darkness engulfed it. The scorpion fell into hell and could no longer see Su Zimo. It could only feel countless malevolent ghosts lunging towards it, wanting to devour its flesh. The scorpion was condensed from Uncle Zhang's hundreds of years of cultivation. However, falling into the Hell Dao was akin to falling into an endless abyss that could never break free. Before long, the scorpion was haunted by the malevolent ghosts and was completely refined, vanishing. Uncle Zhang's face paled slightly. He had abandoned hundreds of years of cultivation, and he hadn't even touched the corner of Su Zimo's clothes before he was turned into nothingness by Su Zimo's minor techniques. One had to know that when Su Zimo released his innate divine power, his strength would increase by 2 times. The minor mystical abilities that he released also became more powerful, and their power increased greatly. They easily broke through Uncle Zhang's immortal technique. Compared to the fallen stage 7 Xian immortal of the Heaven Fiend sect, he was already considered lucky. Although this battle took a long time to describe, it actually happened in the blink of an eye. At that instant, the cultivators on the walls finally reacted and exclaimed, "Heavens, 1 against 5, and he actually killed a 7th stage mystic immortal. Where did this person come from? Could he really be an ascender from the lower realms? Could this person be the reincarnation of an ascendant immortal?" Not to mention the cultivators from the various great powers, even the native exalted immortals of Dragon Lake City were shocked. Disbelief flashed across the eyes of the various commanders. From the start of the battle until now, the trump cards that Su Zimo had revealed were something that even the native exalted immortals could not compare to. And this person was only a 5th stage mystic immortal. How could a 5th stage mystic immortal know so many powerful mystical abilities and secret techniques? Although this battle had yet to end, the current situation had already exceeded everyone's expectations. Yan Fei could not help but sigh. This kid became famous in a single battle. Many cultivators could not help but recall the scene in the Dark Knight house. Commander Lu had once called everyone here to watch a good show. Perhaps even Commander Lu did not expect that this show would turn out like this. Many cultivators turned their gazes and secretly looked at Commander Lu, who was on the city walls. Commander Lu was expressionless, and his gaze was fixed on the battlefield. He did not say a word, and no one knew what he was thinking. Duan Tianliang, Yu Hao, and the rest were naturally overjoyed. Su Wan had a complicated expression as she let out a long sigh. She felt a sense of relief. Fortunately, she did not choose to be enemies with this person. This person's potential was way too great. If he did not die today, there would definitely be a place for him on Dragon Abyss Planet after he grew and cultivated for thousands of years. Given his capabilities, there was a high chance that he could establish the 9th major faction on Dragon Abyss Planet. "Miss, that person seems to be a protector of Ziyanggu." Right then, the burly man behind Su Wan pointed at a figure below the city and said softly, "Below Dragon Abyss City." The battle was intense and no one noticed that another figure had appeared on the battlefield. That person was Protector Shui of Ziyanggu. Fellow Taoists. When Protector Shui saw that the situation was not right, he no longer hid and arrived on the battlefield. He sent a voice transmission to the 3rd head of the Vicious Wolf Army and the others. "Against a 5th stage mystic immortal, just use your essence spirit secret techniques. Why bother with him?" Normally speaking, be it in the upper or lower worlds, cultivators would not use essence spirit secret techniques easily in a fight. Once one's essence spirit was damaged, it would be extremely difficult to heal and it would even affect one's future cultivation. Furthermore, in the hearts of the experts, they were level 7 mystic immortals and were 2 cultivation realms ahead of Su Zimo. Therefore, they could suppress him with a casual attack. Everyone's first reaction was not to use their essence spirit secret techniques. But now, Protector Shui's words jolted everyone present. That was right. Their cultivation realms were higher than Su Zimo's. Once they released their essence spirit secret techniques, Su Zimo would definitely not be able to defend against it. Even if this person had some trump cards that could neutralize an essence spirit secret technique, however, if they joined forces and released it at the same time, this person would definitely die. The 3rd head of the Vicious Wolf Army, the beautiful woman of Profound Light Sect, Protector Shui and the others exchanged glances and nodded secretly. "Everyone, you must not hold back. You must attack with all your might and kill this lad to prevent future troubles." Protector Shui instructed once more. Before he could finish, his glabella flickered with a divine light and released an extremely powerful spirit consciousness. It condensed into a blood-colored sun in midair and charged toward Su Zimo. "It's an essence spirit secret technique." On the city wall, Su Wan exclaimed with a grim expression. "Not good." Yan Fei frowned slightly and whispered, "No matter how strong that lad is, he won't be able to defend against the essence spirit attacks of 5 grade 7 mystic immortals." Commander Lu sneered, "A bunch of fools. Only now do you remember to use your essence spirit secret techniques." On the battlefield, the third head of the vicious wolf army opened his glabella and condensed his spirit consciousness, releasing a golden beam of light that sped towards Su Zimo. The glabella of the beautiful woman of profound light sect shone with a divine light, and a beam of light as thick as a finger shot out. Her spirit consciousness spread and her essence spirit secret technique was released. Uncle Jiang took a deep breath of air and condensed his essence spirit as well, releasing his secret technique. In the blink of an eye, 5 grade 7 mystic immortals attacked at the same time and released their essence spirit secret techniques. Against the attacks of 5 experts, Su Zimo stood in midair with a calm expression. His eyes were bright, and there was not a trace of panic in them. On the contrary, there seemed to be a hint of mockery in his eyes. "You want to fight with your essence spirit?" Su Zimo raised his brow slightly. "There's still daytime, everyone should sleep early." End of chapter. Chapter 1856. Su Zimo channeled his mental cultivation technique and released an essence spirit secret skill without hesitation. A scarlet divine light shot out from his glabella. It did not fly far before it materialized and hovered in midair. It was a scarlet scale that was the size of a palm and shaped like a crescent moon. Everyone present, including the commanders on the city walls, had never seen or heard of an essence spirit secret skill in the form of a scale before. But the moment this scale descended, everyone felt their hearts palpitate for no reason. How is that possible? A Dragon Lake City commander frowned slightly. There's no way the essence spirit secret skill of a grade 5 mystic immortal would possess such a frightening aura. Nobody knew that the scarlet scale was a dragon scale. Furthermore, it was the reverse scale of dragons. The reverse scale flew towards Guardian Shui of Zuyanggu at a steady speed. However, Guardian Shui sensed danger and shouted hurriedly, "Everyone help me." The 2 people closest to Guardian Shui were Uncle Jiang of Sky Scorpion Stronghold and the beautiful woman of Mystic Light Sect. Both of them hesitated for a moment before controlling their essence spirit secret skills to collide against the scarlet scale in midair. Almost at the same time, the essence spirit secret skills of Guardian Shui, Uncle Jiang and the beautiful woman of Mystic Light Sect collided against the reverse scale. When Su Zimo sensed that, he had already turned around and did not take another look. The 4 great Yuan spirit secret techniques fought and clashed silently. There was no earth-shattering sound. However, a series of spirit consciousness fluctuations rippled through the void. Then, a horrifying scene occurred. The moment the 3 essence spirit secret skills collided against the scarlet scale, Guardian Shui, Uncle Jiang and the beautiful woman of Mystic Light Sect shuddered and widened their eyes, as though they had sensed something extremely terrifying. The 3 of them were horrified and their eyes were filled with fear. And this expression was forever fixed on the faces of the 3 of them. Right in front of everyone, the 3 of them collapsed limply as though they had lost their souls. Their eyeballs bulged and they died with grievances. "They're dead." Yen Fei looked at everything in disbelief. His spirit consciousness could clearly sense that there was no longer any life force in the bodies of the 3 of them. Protector Shui and the other 2 did not have a single wound on them. However, the 3 of them had already fallen. Only when one's essence spirit was severely injured and their soul dispersed would such a strange scene occur. But how could this be? The crimson scale was shattered into pieces by their primordial spirit's secret arts. It did not even touch their divine sense. Protector Shui and the other 2 died on the spot. On the city wall, many cultivators were also shocked. Could it be that this essence spirit secret technique can't even be touched? A cultivator said with a trembling voice. There was a commotion in the crowd. Dragons have reverse scales, and those who touch them will die. Guardian Shui and the other 2 did not know that Su Zimo's primordial spirit was originally at the 7th level of the arcane origin stage. Moreover, he had unleashed the innate ability of the 6 Tusks divine force, causing the power of his primordial spirit to skyrocket and surpass that of a level 7 mystic immortal. Coupled with the terrifying power of the reverse scale secret technique, the 3 of them could not withstand the impact of the primordial spirit at all. The battle was still not over. Su Zimo had already expected that to happen. He had already turned around and channeled his essence spirit to conjure another essence spirit secret skill. Buzz. Golden light shone on Su Zimo's glabella as his spirit consciousness condensed. A golden swastika symbol descended rapidly with a sacred aura. It was the Rulai dermic seal. The ancient golden character exuded a vast and terrifying might and shattered third boss's essence spirit secret skill with a crushing force. That was a secret skill of the Buddhist monasteries. The power of the Rulai dermic seal increased exponentially after cultivating the perfection of Nirvana Sutra. Third head's essence spirit secret skill could not defend against it and dissipated instantly. Third head was shocked and wanted to turn and escape. However, there was no way his speed could compare to the Rulai dermic seal. The golden symbol descended and imprinted itself on his back. Instantly, the massive spirit consciousness shattered his divine sense and drowned his essence spirit. Third head did not manage to take a few steps before he collapsed to the ground with no signs of life. In the blink of an eye, 4 of the 5 mystic immortals were dead. On the city wall, everyone was dumbfounded. All the cultivators knew that a fight between essence spirits was extremely dangerous. However, no one expected that the stage 7 mystic immortals present would die even faster and more directly after using essence spirit secret skills. The battle was not over yet. The essence spirit secret skill released by Heavenfire Hall's stage 7 mystic immortal was a fist-sized white flame. By the time the essence spirit secret skill descended, the other 4 were already dead. Heavenfire Hall's stage 7 mystic immortal reacted extremely quickly. Without even thinking or seeing the final outcome, he turned and fled. Su Zimo's expression was cold as he touched his glabella with his finger. From his divine sense, he pulled out a long whip that flickered with blazing lightning. Su Zimo brandished the lightning whip and struck the white flame. The flame shattered on the spot as sparks splattered everywhere. Spirit vanquishing whip. Heavenfire Hall's stage 7 mystic immortal managed to escape the range of the lightning whip as he had fled first. He managed to survive by the skin of his teeth. His face was pale and he did not dare to relax. He rushed towards Dragon Lake City, afraid that Su Zimo would chase after him. He was as flustered as a stray dog. The dozens of stage 6 mystic immortals standing not far away also reacted at this moment and dispersed. In the blink of an eye, there was only one person left standing on the battlefield below Dragon Lake City. He looked down at Dragon Lake City with a monstrous aura and was insufferably arrogant. The battlefield was a mess with corpses everywhere. It was like a Shura hell. And this green-robed cultivator was like the king of this Shura hell. No one dared to offend his dignity. Just this battle alone had caused the deaths of 6 7th-rank mysterious immortals. Stage 6 mystic immortals and stage 5 mystic immortals had suffered even more casualties. The wolf army of more than 10,000 was almost completely wiped out. Only a few hundred people survived. Even a battle between the various major factions on Dragon Lake Planet might not result in such a tragic situation. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed that it was done by one person. The young masters of Sky Scorpion Stronghold, Profound Light Sect, and other factions stood on Dragon Lake City with pale faces and lingering fear. Fortunately, they did not take action. Otherwise, they might have also died under the city. This battle brought an enormous impact to everyone present. Many years later, some of the young masters of some powers that had witnessed this battle with their own eyes didn't dare come into conflict with Su Zimo, and they would still feel terror when they heard the name Su Zimo. Even some of the exalted immortals and guards of Dragon Lake City faced this ascender from the lower dimensions for the first time. Many exalted immortals had even raised this ascender to a level that was equal to them. No matter if it was the higher dimensions or the lower dimensions, the strong were respected. When a person possessed sufficient strength, then he could deter everything. I've disappointed everyone. Su Zimo faced the direction of Dragon Lake City and cupped his hands, saying indifferently, "With just these people, they are still unable to harm my life." Chapter 1857. How arrogant of you! Commander Lu couldn't restrain himself any longer when he heard this. and he couldn't help but explode into rage as he heavily slapped his palm onto the city wall before leaping down. Actually, he'd already made a move when Su Zimo revealed his extraordinary ability. But due to his identity, it wasn't good for him to make a move directly under the gazes of everyone. Yet now, when he saw that there was no one capable of suppressing Su Zimo beneath Dragon Lake City, Commander Lu didn't hesitate any longer. After all, Dragon Lake Star was extremely vast, and there were many areas that were uninhabited and had complicated environments. If this person was allowed to leave and conceal himself, then with Commander Lu's cultivation, even if he led an army to search, it would be like searching for a needle in a haystack, and he might not be able to find this person. Commander Lu firmly believed that Su Zimo absolutely possessed more than one type of treasure. For example, the numerous formidable abilities that Su Zimo revealed just now caused him to be moved. "Lu Tong, what are you doing?" Yan Fei noticed the figure beside him flickering, and he couldn't help but frown deeply as he shouted out lightly. Lu Tong didn't even turn around as he said coldly, "Yan Fei, don't interfere in this matter, otherwise, our many years of friendship will be severed at this moment." Yan Fei hesitated for a moment and stood on the city wall without moving. Even though he rather admired Su Zimo, they didn't have any friendship after all. If he were to become enemies with Lu Tong because of an outsider, then the losses would truly outweigh the gains. Duan Tianliang, Yu Hao, and the others became nervous once more when a rank 8 mysterious immortal made a move. After all, not only was Lu Tong a rank 8 mysterious immortal, he was also the commander of Dragon Lake City. As an ascender, Su Zimo unleashed a slaughter before Dragon Lake City. Even if he annihilated almost 10,000 members of the Wolf Army and killed members of the various powers, no one would say anything. The native exalted immortals of Dragon Lake City would only turn a blind eye to it. But if he dared make a move against the commander of Dragon Lake City, then the nature of this matter would change. Su Zimo remained calm and composed when he saw Lu Tong leaping down from the city wall, and he first put away the storage pouches of Uncle Jiang, Guardian Shui, and the others that were closest to him. "You're about to die, yet you still have the mind to take the things of others?" Lu Tong patted his waist with his palm, and a large pitch-black spear appeared in his palm. It looked very powerful. Bang! Lu Tong came to a spot not far from Su Zimo and slammed his great spear into the ground, creating a crater and causing sand and stones to fly in all directions. He activated the chi of heaven and earth, and a total of 5 runes appeared on the spear. The runes shone brightly, and it was a perfect profound rank magic treasure. "May I ask Commander Lu, what crime have I committed?" Su Zimo asked indifferently with a calm expression. "Umph." Lu Tong sneered and said, "You're still so arrogant and wantonly slaughtering outside Dragon Lake City under the gazes of all of us. It looks to me that you're obviously a member of the Devil Path." Lu Tong did not allow any explanation and directly pinned a hat on him. In fact, the battle had been witnessed by the crowd. Su Zimo had many means, among which there were some powerful secret arts of Buddhism. It was reasonable to say that he was a Buddhist. To say that he was a demonic cultivator was obviously a deliberate attempt to frame him. Hearing this, Su Zimo smiled. "What are you laughing at?" Lu Tong asked with a cold voice. "Commander Lu, the Vicious Wolf Army is one of the 4 great bandits, and they've roamed freely on Dragon Lake Star for many years. Why didn't you make an appearance and annihilate the Vicious Wolf Army? Why didn't you say that the Vicious Wolf Army is a demonic cultivator?" Su Zimo replied with a question. Lu Tong's expression was gloomy, and he was just about to speak. Su Zimo continued. "If it was any other time, you could say that the 4 great bandits roam about everywhere and are difficult to encircle and annihilate. But today, the Vicious Wolf Army launched a large-scale attack, and they're right outside Dragon Lake City. Why did you turn a blind eye to it? As the commander of Dragon Lake City, you didn't suppress the bandits but instead came over to deal with a 5th-level mysterious immortal like me, a person that annihilates bandits. Isn't this laughable?" On the city wall, many cultivators exclaimed with delight in their hearts. Especially Yu Hao and the others, they'd once witnessed their loved ones and friends successively fall at the hands of the Vicious Wolf Army, and in the end, Their families were destroyed and they were homeless. They could be said to hate the four great bandits to the bone. Even though they didn't say it out loud, many cultivators had a great deal of resentment towards the indifference of Dragon Lake City. Su Zimo's words could be considered to have spoken out the thoughts of many cultivators. Su Wan sighed lightly with a worried expression. As far as she was concerned, if Su Zimo lowered his head and submitted to Commander Lu, then perhaps he would have a chance to preserve his life. But now, Su Zimo had actually contradicted Commander Lu like this, and it would probably be difficult for him to escape death today. On the city wall, Lu Tong's face seemed to be covered in a layer of frost, and he didn't speak a single word as he stared fixedly at the nearby Su Zimo with a gaze that emitted dense killing intent. Even the cultivators on Dragon Lake City were able to sense Commander Lu's killing intent. Su Zimo seemed to have still not noticed, and he had a mocking expression as he asked with a smile. I want to ask Commander Lu if you're the commander of Dragon Lake City or the commander of the vicious wolf army. Little bastard, you're courting death. Lu Tong hollered furiously and his gaze shone brightly. He strode toward Su Zimo at a shocking speed. Lu Tong's hands trembled and the gigantic spear seemed to possess a life of its own in his hands. Like a spirit snake, it danced in midair and left behind afterimages. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly and retreated. Immediately after, he released ethereal wings, heaven's feet, earth traversing golden light and other mystic skills, causing his speed to increase explosively as he sped towards the distance. Commander Lu, we'll meet again in the future. There's no need to send me off. Su Zimo chuckled and his figure had already disappeared into the night. Trying to escape? Lu Tong sneered in his heart and channeled his essence spirit. Heaven and earth essence chi coiled around his body and his speed increased explosively as well. He sprinted wildly and chased after Su Zimo with his spear raised. The two of them disappeared from everyone's sight before long, one after the other. Su Zimo did not want to fight with Lu Tong at the moment. Firstly, he was only at the 5th level of the Mystic Essence realm and was 3 cultivation realms away from Lu Tong. Yet now, the amplification of strength brought about by Hexfang was gradually vanishing. Once the two of them fought, the outcome would be difficult to determine. Secondly, Lu Tong was the commander of Dragon Lake City after all. Even if he was able to kill Lu Tong, he would surely offend all the powers of Dragon Lake City. At that time, he would be pursued by the numerous guards and native immortals of Dragon Lake City. The situation was too dangerous and the losses outweighed the gains. Even though Su Zimo had started a slaughter, he didn't lose his reason and still maintained a clear mind. Dragon Lake City. Many cultivators had various expressions and were extremely emotional when they saw this scene. No one had imagined that this battle would have such an outcome. A commander of Dragon Lake City said, "This kid is still too naive. He's experienced a great battle and consumed an enormous amount of energy. His cultivation is too inferior to Lu Tong. How could he possibly escape?" Yen Fei's gaze flickered as he seemed to be lost in thought and kept silent. After a short moment, he suddenly sent a voice transmission to Su Wan, Yu Hao, and the others. "All of you leave Dragon Lake City now." Su Wan and the others were stunned. Yen Fei pondered and said, "It's extremely likely that Su Zimo's actions are for the sake of drawing Lu Tong away." The hearts of Su Wan and the others went cold. Yen Fei reminded, "Of course, I don't know if he has this layer of intention. But if Lu Tong returns empty-handed, he'll probably look for trouble with all of you." Su Wan and the others were all intelligent people and reacted quickly, and they hurriedly thanked Yen Fei before leaving hastily. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1858. Su Zimo sprinted the entire way. Lu Tong chased after him relentlessly. Before long, the two of them were already far away from Dragon Lake City. Initially, Lu Tong thought that Su Zimo's stamina, essence chi and essence spirit had definitely reached their limits after a huge battle. However, his essence, chi and spirit were all at their peak. As long as he kept an eye on Su Zimo, he would be able to capture the latter alive without bloodshed once Su Zimo's stamina was exhausted. At that time, he would have countless methods to force Su Zimo to reveal those divine powers and secret skills. However, Lu Tong chased for close to an entire night. Dawn had already appeared on the distant horizon, and the green figure before him was still sprinting in his line of sight. As a level 8 mystic immortal, he was already feeling fatigued and his blood chi was weak after running for such a long time. He had to consume several elixirs along the way to maintain his condition. However, that person's speed did not show any signs of weakening after an entire night. Just what sort of physique does that person have? Lu Tong cursed internally. If this continued, he would collapse from exhaustion, let alone capture that person alive. It was unusual for a level 5 mystic immortal to be able to match him in terms of movement technique speed. What was even stranger was that this person's stamina seemed to be endless with no end in sight. In fact, Lu Tong even felt a sense of despair. How would he know that Qinglian's recovery speed was so shocking that even the Dragon Phoenix true body back then could not compare to it? After Qinglian's true body grew to grade 9, her recovery speed was even more terrifying. Dawn broke. Lu Tong could not drag this on any longer. He took a deep breath of air with a resolute expression and decided to use a secret skill to increase his speed. This secret skill came from the Fiend's Sex and was obtained by accident after he killed a Fiend's Sect cultivator. All these years, he had never used it in front of anyone. That was because once he released this secret skill, it would have a huge impact on his body and consume a large amount of blood chi essence. He might need hundreds of years to recover. However, if he could suppress Su Zimo, he would not hesitate even if he had to consume his blood chi. Fiend Movement Art. Lu Tong channeled his essence spirit and conjured hand seals with both hands. Suddenly his aura changed. 2 streams of pitch-black demon chi rapidly emerged from his body, as if they were taking away a large amount of his chi and blood essence. These 2 streams of demonic chi revolved around his feet. Lu Tong's feet were injected with an extremely tyrannical and violent force, and his entire body became much lighter. His speed skyrocketed, leaving behind a series of afterimages in the air as he sped forward. The distance between Lu Tong and Su Zimo was rapidly shrinking. Not long after, the distance between the two of them was only a few dozen feet. Lu Tong's spirit shook and his heart was overjoyed. He once again took out the perfect profound rank great spear from his storage pouch. He was ready to close in on him and directly attack. Oh! Sensing the commotion behind him, Su Zimo glanced sideways and glanced over from the corner of his eye. Hee. When he saw the sweaty and menacing Lu Tong, Su Zimo chuckled and shook his head. Compared to Lu Tong, the current Su Zimo was much calmer. His face was rosy and he did not sweat at all. His breathing was steady as he strolled leisurely. Commander Lu, thank you for escorting me all the way here. Please stay. Su Zimo said and channeled his essence spirit, channeling his innate divine powers. With a whoosh, 2 giant wings grew out from his back. They were golden all over, and each feather was flowing with a mysterious divine light. This was the innate divine power inherited from the golden-winged roc, extreme speed. Initially, Su Zimo did not use it. On the one hand, he wanted to lure Lu Tong away. On the other hand, he wanted to see how long Lu Tong could chase after him. Now that Lu Tong had released his secret skill, he no longer hesitated. The speed of the golden-winged roc was considered top-notch even in the 3,000 worlds of the upper realm. There were almost no living beings that could compare to it. Swoosh! Flapping his golden wings, Su Zimo's figure transformed into a streak of light and shot out. In the blink of an eye, the distance between the two of them widened once more. What? Lu Tong's eyes widened and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This was a huge blow to him. He chased for an entire night and released a Fiend Sect secret skill that consumed his essence chi. Just as he was about to catch up to Su Zimo released a divine power that was even faster than him. Not only did the distance between the two of them not shorten, it widened rapidly instead. Su Zimo possessed the wings of the golden-winged roc and could soar in midair. He could ignore the obstacles such as rocks and shrubs on the ground and was even faster. However, Lu Tong was sprinting on the ground. In less than half an incense's time, Su Zimo had completely vanished from Lu Tong's line of sight without a trace. Lu Tong had no choice but to stop in his tracks. His face was livid as he panted heavily. His eyes were spitting fire and he was furious to the point his head was about to explode. He chased for an entire night, but in the end he didn't even touch the corner of Su Zimo's clothes. Lu Tong ground his teeth and clenched his fists tightly. He stood on the spot and stood blankly for a long time before suppressing the rage in his heart and turning around to head towards Dragon Lake Star. He sprinted with all his might and chased for an entire night. But this time, he took an entire 2 days to return to Dragon Lake City. Isn't that Commander Lu? The guards at the city gate saw a travel-worn cultivator walking over from afar. His face was covered in dust and he looked to be in a slightly sorry state. If it wasn't for the token on his waist, many of the guards wouldn't dare to recognize him. Didn't Commander Lu go to chase that Su Zimo? Why did you return on your own? One of them was slightly puzzled and asked. Another guard said, "Is there even a need to ask? He's surely killed on the spot. Could it be that he brought a corpse back?" Before long, Lu Tong arrived at the city gate of Dragon Lake City. "Commander Lu, you've returned." A guard hurriedly greeted him with a smile on his face. Another guard bowed and said loudly with a face full of smiles, "Congratulations, Commander Lu, for annihilating that rascal, Su Zimo, and returning victorious." Lu Tong's footsteps stopped. He couldn't help but recall the scene from 2 days ago, and his face instantly went gloomy as a strand of rage surged into his heart, and he directly slapped the guard on the face with a flip of his hand. Crack! The sound of bones cracking resounded out. This guard was a 6th-level mysterious immortal as well, yet his face was shattered by Lu Tong's slap, and he rolled out over 30 m before fainting on the spot. "Please forgive me, Commander Lu." The other guards at the city gate were terrified to the point their entire bodies trembled, and they knelt on the ground successively and didn't dare raise their heads. Lu Tong lightly gritted his teeth and asked, "Where are those people that followed by Su Zimo's side?" "Commander Lu, those people have already left the city 2 days ago, and their whereabouts are unknown," a city guard replied while trembling with fear. The rage in Lu Tong's heart grew even stronger, yet he had nowhere to vent it. At this moment, he came to an understanding that Su Zimo wanted to draw him away. That person was clearly toying with him. "Fuck off." Lu Tong raised his leg and kicked the few city guards before him flying, and then he returned to his estate furiously. This time, not to mention returning without accomplishing anything, he'd even lost a great deal of vital energy and blood essence. He had to recuperate for a period of time before he could completely recover to his previous state. End of this chapter. Chapter 1859. Su Zimo did not linger anywhere else and returned to the wilderness on his own. He had reaped great rewards from this trip to Dragon Lake City. Prior to this, he had exchanged all the immortal herbs in his storage bag and obtained close to 500,000 essence condensation elixirs. During the battle at Dragon Lake City, he obtained the storage bags of a few more Grade 7 Mystic Immortals. Along the way, he had nothing to do, so he had already sorted out the rewards he had obtained this time. There were close to 10 million essence condensation elixirs in those storage bags. There were even more of the 2 types of immortal herbs. There were a total of 64 essence spirit stones. Coupled with the 13 essence spirit stones he obtained from the Ziyanggu army previously, he had a total of 77 essence spirit stones. Of course, there were also some Dharma treasures and cultivation techniques in those storage bags. However, those Dharma treasures could not catch Su Zimo's attention. Su Zimo roughly browsed through some of the cultivation techniques and secret skills, but none of them were worth cultivating. That was normal. If those cultivators truly possessed any powerful cultivation techniques or secret skills, they would not have lost so miserably. Unfortunately, Su Zimo did not manage to collect the storage bags of the 10,000-strong army of the Wolf Army. That was a waste. Of course, his greatest gains from this battle were 3 items. The first was a spirit treasure fragment, the second was a pitch-black broken blade, and the third was the Sala leaf. Su Zimo entered seclusion cultivation the moment he returned to the wilderness. He first placed the spirit treasure fragment into the bronze square tripod and observed it quietly. True enough, a terrifying power burst forth from within the bronze square tripod and smelted the spirit treasure fragment, absorbing the essence within. However, the bronze square tripod did not change much after smelting the spirit treasure fragment. However, a crack seemed to have been repaired on one of the shattered tripod walls. The cracks on the tripod walls were densely packed and Su Zimo could not detect them. Without hesitation, he tossed the pitch-black broken blade into the bronze square tripod once more. Before long, the bronze square tripod smelted the pitch-black broken blade once more. This time round, Su Zimo stared intently at the shattered tripod walls. Indeed, on the wall of the cauldron, a crack gradually healed. Of course, there were too many cracks on the cauldron wall, and only 2 of them were repaired. It could be said that it was insignificant. The bronze square cauldron didn't change much either. But this at least confirmed Su Zimo's speculation. If he wanted to repair this bronze square cauldron, he would have to devour at least a spirit-channeling magic treasure. As long as he had this direction, the bronze square cauldron would be restored to its original state one day. Of course, it would be best if he could devour a weapon of a higher grade than a spirit-channeling magic treasure. For example, during his ascension, he was intercepted by the Cloud Underworld King and fell into a black hole in the starry sky. By chance, the bronze square cauldron had once devoured an immortal king weapon. It was also because of this weapon that one of the walls of the bronze square cauldron was repaired. Only then was he able to learn the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, stabilize his primordial spirit, and escape from the black hole in space. However, this kind of opportunity could only be encountered and not sought. With his current cultivation, not to mention an immortal king weapon, he wouldn't even be able to come into contact with a complete psychic magic treasure. Su Zimo was increasingly curious about the bronze square cauldron. He wanted to see what sort of mysteries the bronze square cauldron would reveal the moment it was restored to its original state. During this period of time, he had yet to establish a connection with Wu Dao's true body. He did not know if it was because his primordial spirit's cultivation was insufficient or if there were other reasons. However, Su Zimo was not worried. In Tianhuang mainland, there was no one who could threaten Wu Dao's true body. Next was the Suo Luo leaf. The Suo Luo leaf had an extraordinary meaning to Su Zimo. His true body could be said to be a creation Qinglian. If he could refine the Suo Luo leaf, there would be an obvious increase in the growth of the creation Qinglian. More importantly, the Suo Luo tree was one of the 3 sacred trees of the Buddhist monasteries. Legend has it that the Buddha once transcended nirvana under the Suo Luo tree. If he could refine the leaf, he would definitely have many brand new insights towards cultivating the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. A month later, Su Zimo was in seclusion when his heart skipped a beat. He floated up and walked out of his cave abode. "Master!" The silver giant was guarding not far away. When it saw Su Zimo coming out of seclusion, it hurried forward. "Someone's here," Su Zimo said softly. The silver giant said with a ferocious gaze, "Don't worry, master. I'll go take a look and not let anyone disturb your cultivation." "There's no need for that," Su Zimo waved it off. "There aren't many people who know about this place. Duan Tianliang and the others should have returned." Before long, he heard De Huang's cheerful barks. A large group of people walked over from afar. Duan Tianliang rode on Ying Zhao's back and walked at the front with De Huang. Duan Tianliang was beaming as he bragged to everyone behind him. Beside Duan Tianliang and De Huang were 3 familiar faces, Yu Hao, Shen Fei and Gu Wenjun. "Greetings, Brother Su." When Yu Hao saw Su Zimo, he was overjoyed and hurried forward. Shen Fei and Gu Wenjun also came over to greet him. Behind the 3 of them were tens of thousands of cultivators. Most of them were at LV1, LV2 or LV3 Mystic Essence Realm. Only about 1,000 of them were wearing armor and were at LV4 or LV5 Mystic Essence Realm. They seemed to be quite strong. These cultivators looked at Su Zimo with curiosity, surprise and awe. They were all from Yeong camp. During this period of time, Yu Hao and the others had already told everyone about the battle at 100,000 Mountains and Dragon Lake City. For such a great battle, Even if there were no embellishments, the original description was already soul-stirring, not to mention Duan Tianliang, who was so eloquent that he danced with joy when talking about it. Everyone from Yeong camp had been curious about Su Zimo for a long time. In their hearts, an expert who was able to annihilate 5,000 soldiers from the Blood Sun Valley and burn 10,000 soldiers from the Vicious Wolf Army must have a stalwart and heroic figure. Perhaps he might even be a monster with 3 heads and 6 arms. But now, they saw that the legendary ruthless person was actually this gentle and handsome scholar in front of them. "We came uninvited. Please forgive us, Brother Su." Yu Hao said. "It's okay." Su Zimo smiled and looked at the people behind Yu Hao. He asked, "This is..." Gu Wenjun smiled and said, "Brother Su, these are the cultivators of Myeong camp. We 3 siblings brought them to seek refuge with you. Please take us in and don't reject us." Yu Hao said, "Myeong camp is worried that we will be targeted by the Wolf Army and Zuyanggu, so we have to move every once in a while. After such a big thing happened this time, we were about to leave, so we thought that we might as well seek refuge with Brother Su." Bossu. Xin Fei followed Duan Tianliang and changed the way he addressed Su Zimo. "From now on, you will be our leader. That's all for today. Everyone, go to bed early. Thank you for the tip, Brother Heiling." End of chapter. Chapter 1860. Su Zimo waved it off and said to Yu Hao and the other 2, "I'm only at level 5 Mystic Essence Realm and can't compare to you guys. I can't be the leader." "Boss Su, what are you talking about?" Shen Fei said hurriedly, "Others may not know about your capabilities, but do you think we don't know? No one will dare to object to you being our leader." Su Zimo still shook his head. "If you guys want to set up camp here, that's not a problem. However, I won't be the leader." Yu Hao and the other 2 exchanged glances. Seeing Su Zimo's firm attitude, they could not persuade him anymore. Actually, Su Zimo had his own considerations and concerns for rejecting this matter. One day, he would have to leave Dragon Abyss Planet. He did not want to leave too many ties on Dragon Abyss Planet. If he were to truly become the leader of Annihilation Yang Camp, it might not be a good thing for him and Annihilation Yang Camp. Su Zimo turned to look at Duan Tianliang. "Since you're familiar with the surroundings, bring the fellow Taoists of Annihilation Yang Camp to settle down nearby and open up a spirit field." "Don't worry, boss. Leave it to me." Duan Tianliang patted his chest. Su Zimo then said to Yu Hao, "This is the wilderness and is rather secluded. You guys can cultivate here in peace and build up your strength." Su Zimo pondered for a moment and took out a few storage bags, handing them to Duan Tianliang, Yu Hao and the others. "There are some essence-gathering elixirs here. Take them and cultivate for the time being. Raise your cultivation as soon as possible." Brother Su, this. Yu Hao was a little embarrassed and was about to decline. Su Zimo had already turned and walked towards his cave abode. "I'm going into seclusion after this as well. If there's nothing important, don't look for me." "Thank you, boss." Duan Tianliang shouted happily. Even though he didn't contribute much by accompanying Su Zimo to Dragon Lake City this time, he was filled with anxiety and fear all along the way, and he was scared half to death. Su Zimo gave him some essence-gathering elixirs as compensation and consolation. Duan Tianliang opened his storage bag and took a look. His gaze was instantly transfixed. Originally, he thought that Su Zimo would reward him with dozens or even hundreds of soul-condensing pills, which was already considered rare. After all, back when he was in Wind Snow Ridge, it would take him decades to accumulate 100 soul-condensing pills. But he did not expect that the number of essence-condensing pills in this storage bag was astonishing. He was dazzled. Duan Tianliang took a few deep breaths and counted several times. 10,000 pills. A total of 10,000 core solidifying pills. A strong sense of happiness arose spontaneously. Duan Tianliang rolled his eyes and almost passed out on the spot. On the other side, Yu Hao and the others opened their storage bags to take a look as well. All of them gasped and their expressions changed starkly. In Yu Hao's storage bag, there were 100,000 core condensation pills. Shen Fei and Gu Wenjun each had 50,000 pills in their storage bags. To Yu Hao, These 100,000 origin condensation pills were enough for him to cultivate for a few hundred years. Actually, Su Zimo had close to 10 million origin condensing pills in his storage pouch, but he did not give too many to Yu Hao and the others. Given Yu Hao, Duan Tianliang and the others' physiques and cultivations, the number of origin condensation pills they could refine every day was limited. For example, Duan Tianliang needed more than 2 months to refine a single origin condensation pill. Yu Hao's time was shorter and he could only refine a single pill a day at most. If he gave them too many origin condensation pills, they would not be able to digest them. However, Su Zimo was different. He was Qinglian's true body. When he was at level 4 Mystic Essence Realm, he could refine 10 origin condensation pills in a day. Now that he was at level 5 Mystic Essence Realm, his need for origin condensation pills was even greater. He could even refine 100 origin condensation pills in a day. He would consume more than 30,000 origin condensation pills in a year of cultivation. This demand was extremely shocking, but it was also within common sense. Creation Qinglian had already grown to grade 9. Su Zimo's current cultivation was not only his own, but also Creation Qinglian's growth. It was not that easy for Creation Qinglian to grow. Fortunately, Su Zimo had obtained a large number of origin condensation pills during this trip to Dragon Lake City. That was how he could maintain his cultivation. Zhiyangu. In a dark room, there were 3 people sitting. One of them was quite handsome, but he only had one arm. His long sleeves were empty. He was the young master of Zhiyangu, Qin Xinyang. In a month's time, Qin Xuanyang's injuries had healed quite a bit. His face had also regained a bit of color. However, his arm was forever broken. Unless he cultivated to the Earth Deity realm, he would never be able to regrow it. Opposite Qin Xianyang sat a level 7 Mystic Immortal. He was the other guardian of Zhiyangu, Wei Shan. There was another person sitting in the middle. However, this person was hidden in the darkness and his face could not be seen clearly. One could only vaguely make out a rough outline. This person was the Valley Master of Zhiyangu. The news of the battle in Dragon Lake City had already spread. In this battle, the evil wolf army had suffered the most losses. Next was Zhiyangu. Not only had they lost close to 5,000 soldiers, but they had also lost a level 7 Mystic Immortal Guardian. Qin Xianyang had also lost an arm. Since the establishment of Zhiyangu, there had been countless battles, big and small, but they had never encountered such a huge setback. The atmosphere in the room was a little gloomy and irritating. "Father, what should we do about this?" Qin Xianyang could not help but ask. "We can't just let this go. If we can't tear Su Zimo into pieces, I'm afraid our Zhiyangu will be laughed at by countless people." Wei Shan said in a low voice, "Valley Master, during this period of time, the reputation of Zhiyangu and the evil wolf army has indeed fallen to the bottom. Many forces and cultivators have begun to question our strength and want to break away from our control and jurisdiction. I heard that some forces are even restless and want to replace Zhiyangu." The Valley Master of Zhiyangu was silent for a while before asking, "What do you think?" "I suggest that we immediately search for Su Zimo's whereabouts. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we have to find him." Qin Xianyang said hatefully. Wei Shan was silent and did not agree. The Valley Master of Zhiyangu said indifferently, "If that Su Zimo wants to hide, not to mention using all of Zhiyangu's forces, even if the 8 forces join forces, they might not be able to find him. This kid is indeed a hidden danger. Fortunately, his cultivation is not high, so he is not a big problem. Don't worry, Xianyang. When this kid appears again, I will personally capture him and hand him over to you to deal with." "Thank you, Father." Qin Xianyang was overjoyed and hurriedly knelt down to thank him. If his father was willing to take action, as long as Su Zimo dared to appear, he would definitely die. The Valley Master of Zhiyangu pondered for a while and said, "This kid can hide for now, but he can't hide forever. One day he will appear again. When that time comes, it will be the time of his death. What we need to do now is wait patiently." Wei Shan nodded and said, "This kid's cultivation is not high. Even if he hides and cultivates for hundreds or thousands of years, it will be difficult for him to achieve anything. The most important thing now is to stabilize Zhuanggu's position and strength. The Valley Master of Zhuanggu said, Wei Shan, go and deal with the forces that are disloyal. Anyone who dares to challenge Zhuanggu's authority will be killed without mercy. Understood, Wei Shan replied with a murderous look in his eyes. End of chapter. Chapter 1861. In a seclusion cave abode in the wilderness. A green figure sat cross-legged with his black hair fluttering despite the absence of wind. He circulated a mental cultivation technique and breathed in the essence chi of heaven and earth, swirling around his body and rising into the air. The entire cave abode was like an immortal realm. Although he became famous in a single battle in Dragon Lake City, Su Zimo was not arrogant. He knew very well that his cultivation realm was still too low. He did not even have the confidence to win against Lu Tong, who was a Class 8 Mystic Immortal, let alone a Class 9 Mystic Immortal. Furthermore, this was only the Dragon Lake planet. After all, the Dragon Lake planet was only a remote planet under the jurisdiction of the Great Gene Immortal Country and Azure Cloud County. Even the native immortals stationed in Dragon Lake City had limited means and combat strength. True geniuses and monsters would definitely not come to the Dragon Lake planet. Su Zimo would definitely face these experts when he left the Dragon Lake planet in the future. He had to raise his cultivation realm as soon as possible. He took out a core formation elixir from his storage bag and swallowed it before beginning his cultivation. Time flowed like a shuttle. Su Zimo had been cultivating in the cave abode for 50 years. 50 years was a fleeting time for other cultivators, and their cultivation realm would not change much. However, Su Zimo had already cultivated to the peak of level 5 Mystic Essence Realm and was only a step away from level 6 Mystic Essence Realm. Qinglian's true body coupled with sufficient cultivation resources and a powerful cultivation technique like the Perfection of Wisdom Nirvana Sutra could achieve such an effect. None of them could be missing. Su Zimo opened his eyes and woke up from his seclusion. He had encountered a bottleneck. Of course, this bottleneck was nothing to him. As long as he continued to cultivate and consume core formation elixirs, he would be able to break through to level 6 Mystic Essence Realm in a few hundred years or even a few decades. However, Su Zimo did not force himself to cultivate. His spirit consciousness moved and a leaf that was half yellow and half green flew out from his storage bag. It was the Suo Luo leaf. It was merely a leaf, yet it contained a mysterious force. Su Zimo's divine sense only touched it slightly, but he could feel that the leaf was like a vast starry sky, filled with endless mysteries. If this leaf were to fall into the hands of other forces, they would definitely treat it as a precious treasure and store it carefully to increase the surrounding yuan qi of heaven and earth. Su Zimo took out the Sua Luo leaf because he wanted to refine it and break through the bottleneck. Back in Tianhuang mainland, he had obtained a section of carefree wood. Although it was only a small piece of dead wood, it had an extremely obvious effect on the growth of Qinglian's true body. But this Sua Luo leaf was only half withered. It must contain an even greater strength. Just as he was about to refine the Sua Luo leaf, his entire body shook. In a trance, he seemed to have fallen into an indescribable mirage. The cave abode had already disappeared. Around him stood countless monks with their palms pressed together, softly chanting scriptures that contained vast divine power. The monks looked ahead with pity in their eyes. Su Zimo looked over instinctively. Not far ahead, there was an ancient tree that was tall. It had lush leaves and strange leaves. Every single leaf was made up of 7 leaves and shone with a Buddhist light. Sua Luo tree. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He realized that the ancient tree before him was one of the legendary sacred trees of the Buddhist monasteries, the Sua Luo tree. Beneath the ancient tree, an ancient Buddha assumed a lotus position. He had a benevolent expression and a gentle gaze as he smiled while holding flowers. Su Zimo's gaze met with that person's. There was a boom in his mind. Instantly, he felt as though he was sitting beneath the Sua Luo tree and listening to the Sanskrit chants of the Buddhas, entering a mysterious state. It was as though he had fused with the ancient Buddha and was experiencing everything that the ancient Buddha was experiencing. He was comprehending what the ancient Buddha saw, thought. The ancient Buddha's comprehension of Buddhism had already reached its peak. Compared to this ancient Buddha, Su Zimo's attainments in the Buddhist Dharma were as insignificant as dust. He could clearly sense that the ancient Buddha was undergoing nirvana and transcending beneath the Esu Luo tree. Su Zimo came to a realization. He could vaguely sense that this was the scene of the Buddha transcending nirvana beneath the Esu Luo tree in the past. The Buddha was imparting the Tao through the Esu Luo tree. As Su Zimo listened to the Buddhist sutras being chanted beside his ears, he suddenly realized that these Buddhist sutras had many similarities to the perfection of wisdom Nirvana Sutra that he cultivated. At that moment, through the nirvana of the Buddha's Esu Luo tree, he had a brand new understanding of this Buddhist sutra. If anyone was in this cave abode, they would definitely see an extremely shocking scene. Su Zimo hovered in midair with countless mysterious golden Sanskrit revolving around him. There seemed to be a vast Sanskrit chanting reverberating endlessly within the cave abode. In fact, gigantic halos of light shone behind Su Zimo's head. If anyone from the Buddhist monastery saw this, they would most likely be shocked and kneel on the ground in worship. Right then, Su Zimo's body shuddered. The various phenomenons around him vanished instantly. Su Zimo woke up from that wondrous comprehension. The Esu Luo tree leaf in front of him had already withered completely and floated down slowly, turning into an ordinary withered leaf. When he refined the Esu Luo tree leaf, he made contact with the Buddha's gaze and received the Tao imparting from the Buddha. It seemed as though hundreds or thousands of years had passed. However, in reality, it was merely a few breaths of time in this cave abode. The illusion of time was extremely wondrous. Su Zimo sensed it and could not help but be delighted. In just these few breaths of time, his cultivation had actually broken through to the 6th level of the mystic origin stage without anyone noticing. The Buddha's imparting of the Tao through the Esu Luo tree leaf was an unimaginable opportunity. The bottleneck he encountered was nothing much. The gains he obtained in those few breaths of time were much greater than what he obtained after cultivating for dozens of years. After refining the Esu Luo tree leaf, Qinglian's true body had an extremely obvious growth as well. Su Zimo suppressed the joy in his heart and waved his hand with his spirit consciousness. A streak of light darted in from outside the cave abode. It was the brilliance of a message talisman. The reason why he woke up from his comprehension was because of the same fluctuation that came from outside the cave abode. Wind Snow Ridge is in trouble. The stream of light dissipated and revealed 5 elegant words. Su Zimo frowned and his expression darkened. Back when he left Wind Snow Ridge, he had given Xia Qingying a message talisman and instructed her to tear the talisman if she encountered any danger so that he would know. That message talisman was meant as a precaution to begin with. To think that something would really happen to Wind Snow Ridge. Without hesitation, Su Zimo pushed open the door and walked out of the cave abode. "Boss, you're out of seclusion?" Duan Tianliang hurried over. Yu Hao and the others appeared one after another when they heard the commotion. "Brother Su, did something happen?" Yu Hao asked when he saw that something was amiss with Su Zimo's expression. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "Wind Snow Ridge is in trouble. I'll head over to take a look." Chapter 1862. "Boss, I'll go with you." Duan Tianliang immediately said, "Although my cultivation isn't high, I've stayed in Snow Wind Ridge for many years. I'm also someone from there." This time, Duan Tianliang did not choose to back down. "Brother Su, Annihilation Camp has been under your protection for so many years. Today, we can't just sit back and do nothing. I'll go with you." Yu Hao also stepped forward. However, before he could finish, Su Zimo had already leaped into the air and turned into a ray of golden light. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at the horizon. His speed was shockingly fast. The situation in Snow Wind Ridge seemed to be a little dangerous. Su Zimo did not dare to delay. If he went with Yu Hao and the others, it might be too late by the time they arrived at Snow Wind Ridge. As for Su Zimo, he released his heaven's foot, earth-traversing golden light and other mystic skills. Once again, he released his innate divine powers and a pair of golden wings grew behind him. With a flap of his wings, he traveled thousands of kilometers in an instant. Yu Hao and the others were shocked. With such speed, it was no wonder that Lu Tong had returned empty-handed. Yu Hao suddenly asked, "Just now, did you notice Brother Su's cultivation?" Shen Fei shook his head and said, "It's only been 50 years. What changes can there be? He's still at Mystic Ian Stage 5. In the upper realm, the improvement of one's cultivation was measured in thousands or even tens of thousands of years. 50 years was just a fleeting time for them. They did not feel anything. For example, although Yu Hao and the others had sufficient cultivation resources, their cultivation did not change at all after 50 years. Brother Su seems to be a Stage 6 mystic immortal." Yu Hao said slowly. "What?" Everyone was shocked. In just 50 years, Su Zimo had broken through again and reached Mystic Ian Stage 6? Such a cultivation speed was too shocking and unbelievable. Yu Hao shook his head and said, "Maybe I saw wrongly. Brother Su just came out of seclusion and went far away. I didn't check carefully." "Big brother, you must have seen wrongly." Shen Fei said with a smile, "It's impossible to reach Mystic Ian Stage 6 from Mystic Ian Stage 5 in 50 years. Even a reincarnated immortal can't do that." "Not necessarily." Duan Tianliang said, "Others might not be able to do it, but boss can definitely do it." Big Yellow nodded as well. They understood Su Zimo a little more than Yu Hao and the others. They were well aware of Su Zimo's uniqueness. Just the fact that he could gather the chi of heaven and earth was beyond common sense. "Big brother, no matter what, we should go to Wind Snow Ridge and help as soon as possible," Gu Wenjun said. Yu Hao nodded and said, "There's no time to lose. Let's set off now." Wind Snow Ridge. The flames of war swirled in the air. Shadows of people appeared one after another. Slaughter was everywhere. Blood splattered everywhere. Wails, roars, and cries for help intertwined together like a shura shrouded in blood. This could not be considered a battle. It was more like a massacre. Xiangu's massacre of Feng Shuling. Even though Snowwind Ridge possessed almost 10,000 people and could be considered to be a power that was neither large nor small, but most of them were first or second level mysterious immortal realm herb farmers. The real guards of Snowwind Ridge were only slightly more than 1,000 people. Even these guards were mostly third-level mysterious immortals. The number of fourth-level mysterious immortals was extremely small. This time, Xiangu was led by Qin Shenyang personally. There were a total of 20,000 soldiers and 3 seventh-level mysterious immortals as bodyguards. In Xiangu's army, the weakest cultivators were 4th or 5th-level mysterious immortals. There were also many 6th-level mysterious immortals. Whether it was in terms of numbers or overall strength, Snowwind Ridge was too weak. Among the 20,000 soldiers, only half of Xiangu's cultivators attacked. The remaining 10,000 soldiers surrounded Snowwind Ridge so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Even though the cultivators of Snowwind Ridge had already been defeated and fled in all directions, they could not escape at all. Within Snowwind Ridge, corpses were everywhere and blood flowed like a river. The immortal herbs in the spiritual field had already withered and fallen into a pool of blood. A one-armed man dressed in silver-white armor rode a tall horse as he stood in front of the Blood Sun Valley's army. He looked at the scene with an excited expression as his eyes revealed a savage and bloody glint. This person was the young master of Xiangu, Qin Shenyang. Kill, kill, kill. Chen Shenyang grinned and shouted excitedly, "Other than that B** T Xiaqing, kill everyone else. Don't leave a single person alive." One of the Xiangu's bodyguards, Wei Shan, frowned slightly and said softly, "Young master, if there are cultivators who want to pledge allegiance to Xiangu, why don't we spare their lives?" "Don't spare them." Chen Shenyang waved his hand and said coldly, "Kill them all. Only then can we establish our might and let all the forces in this area know the consequences of disobeying Xiangu." Wei Shan sighed internally and did not persuade him anymore. Ever since Qin Xianyang suffered a crushing defeat in the 100,000 Mountains 50 years ago and lost his arm, his style of doing things changed a lot and his temperament became unreasonable and ruthless. Before this, although Qin Xianyang was ruthless, he would still pretend to be a gentleman on the surface. After losing his arm, he no longer hid his inner thoughts and tore off his mask to reveal his ferocious face. If it was in the past, Qin Xianyang would definitely not do what he did today in order to protect his image. But now, he could do anything for his own goals. Within Snowwind Ridge, Xia Qingying was bathed in blood and hugged her father's corpse with tears streaming down her face in grief. At this moment, she felt completely disheartened. She even wanted to end her own life here and follow her father. During this period, many cultivators from the Blood Sun Valley passed by her, but none of them harmed her life. She knew that this must be Qin Xianyang's order. Hearing the cries of the cultivators of Snowwind Ridge, Xia Qingying took a deep breath and seemed to have made a decision. She wiped away the tears on her face with a resolute gaze. She put down her father's corpse and shouted in the direction of the Zuyanggu army, "Qin Xianyang, give the order to stop and let the others go. I, Xia Qingying, will be at your disposal and agree to all your requests." "Missy, you can't." In the pool of blood, a person was covered in injuries and struggled to stand up. It was Old Yen. A Zuyanggu cultivator charged over on his armored horse and crashed into Old Yan's body heavily amidst his laughter. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Old Yen rolled dozens of feet away and fell into a pool of blood, coughing out mouthfuls of blood. His eyes were dim and his life aura was weak. "Ha ha." Qin Xianyang laughed loudly. It's too late for you to beg for mercy now. I've killed all the living beings in Snowwind Ridge, and you're still one of mine." Xia Qingying clenched her fists tightly as her entire body trembled. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she tried her best to not let her tears flow out. "Qin Xianyang," Xia Qingying said loudly, "you're a coward. One of your arms was cut off. Don't think of recovering in this lifetime. You'll never be able to compare to him." These words directly poked at Qin Xianyang's sore spot. His face instantly darkened as he recalled the past, and he gnashed his teeth with hatred. His expression was filled with resentment, and even his features became slightly warped. Let me tell you," Qin Xianyang said coldly, "that Su Zimo offended a few great powers of Dragon Lake City, and he utterly doesn't dare to show himself. If he dares to show himself, I, Qin Xianyang, will definitely avenge my lost arm and wash away the humiliation. Qin Xianyang, I'll give you this chance." Right at this moment, a loud shout sounded out from the distant horizon. It was like a shocking thunder that rolled over, and it contained boundless rage and killing intent. Chapter 1863. What? When he heard that voice, Qin Xianyang's heart skipped a beat and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Even though 50 years had passed, he was not unfamiliar with that voice at all and guessed the identity of that person almost immediately. Su Zimo. How was that possible? This person had disappeared for 50 years. How could he appear here at this time? Qin Xianyang was still in disbelief and could not help but look towards the direction of the voice. When the voice first sounded, it was still in the sky. However, when Qin Xianyang turned around to look, Su Zimo's figure had already arrived in front of the army and was less than 100 feet away from him. Su Zimo's expression was cold and his gaze was like a knife that emitted a chilling intent, as though it could pierce Qin Xianyang's heart. Qin Xianyang's expression changed drastically. When he was looked at by Su Zimo, he could not help but recall the scene 50 years ago and was so frightened that his expression changed drastically and his soul left his body. Just now, he had long forgotten the big words he had said. This figure was like a nightmare that had haunted him for a whole 50 years. It was impossible to get rid of it in his memory. No one could imagine the fear and influence that Su Zimo brought to Qin Xianyang. Or rather, cultivators who did not experience the Battle of the 100,000 Mountains and did not witness the battle at Dragon Lake City would find it difficult to understand Qin Xianyang's fear at this moment. Qin Xianyang's heart was about to jump out of his chest. He urged the mount beneath him and was about to turn and flee towards Xianggu in a panic. The battle at Dragon Lake City 50 years ago had long spread throughout Dragon Lake Planet. Many cultivators in Xianggu had also heard of Su Zimo's ferocious reputation. Now that they saw Su Zimo with their own eyes, they were shocked as well. When the Xianggu army saw Chen Xianyang fleeing without a fight, they became restless. Both sides had yet to fight, but the Xianggu army was already in a mess. However, a pair of golden wings grew behind Su Zimo's back and his aura was monstrous. He was like a god that broke through the air and was unstoppable. Wind Snow Ridge. Xia Qingying looked at the figure that rushed over at lightning speed, and the tears in her eyes could no longer be controlled and fell onto her clothes. She tore the message talisman apart as a last resort. In her heart, she did not dare to hope that Su Zimo would appear. After all, the two of them did not have a deep relationship. A person who had disappeared for 50 years would come out of seclusion just because of her talisman? Xia Qingying could see the hardships on Su Zimo's face. It was unknown how long this person had been running to reach Wind Snow Ridge at the last moment. "Father, do you see it?" Xia Qingying sobbed and said, "Wind Snow Ridge is saved, we are saved." There was no response. "The Lord lords the Wind Snow Mountain. Father, open your eyes and take a look." Xia Qingying could no longer hold on and collapsed on the ground weakly. She hugged her father's corpse and cried out loud. She was no longer worried about herself or Wind Snow Mountain. She believed that with this person around, he would definitely be able to protect Wind Snow Mountain through this calamity. Some of the cultivators who were lucky enough to survive in Wind Snow Mountain were also excited when they saw Su Zimo. Lao Yen was lying in a pool of blood and was about to lose consciousness. But when he heard that familiar voice, his mind shook, and he struggled to sit up as if he had regained consciousness. "Is that Brother Su? Brother Su is back to see us." Lao Yen smiled in a daze. "Guardian, save me." Seeing that Su Zimo was getting closer and closer, Chen Xianyang became more and more frightened and shouted loudly. He had a feeling that Su Zimo was going to kill him on the spot this time round. Su Zimo was coming for him. Wei Shan's expression was solemn, but he still stopped Chen Xianyang and said in a low voice, "Young master, don't panic. You are the commander of the army. If you run away, the morale of the army will be in chaos. How can we suppress this person then?" "You don't understand." Chen Xianyang roared. "This Su Zimo will definitely kill me today. He will never let me go. Young master, our Xianggu army has more than 20,000 soldiers and 3 guardians. How can we be afraid of a stage 5 mystic immortal?" One of the guardians said in a low voice. At this moment, Wei Shan seemed to have noticed something. Suddenly, his expression changed and he exclaimed, "No. He is not a stage 5 mystic immortal, but a stage 6 mystic immortal." "What? That's impossible." The 2 enforcers, including Chen Xianyang, were astonished. They could hardly believe their eyes. Chen Xianyang swallowed and said, "How is that possible? 60 years ago, when I first met him, he was only a stage 4 mystic immortal. 50 years ago, he was only a stage 5 mystic immortal. Now, he has cultivated to stage 6 mystic Ian?" The other 2 protectors released their spirit consciousnesses hurriedly and scanned Su Zimo as well. As expected, a stage 6 mystic immortal. "Get out of my way. Don't stop me." Chen Xianyang did not dare to stay here. He waved his spear and rode his mount. He charged through the crowd and ran wildly towards Xianggu. A Xianggu cultivator accidentally blocked his way. Chen Xianyang did not even think about it. He stabbed the cultivator to death with his spear and rushed over. "Our cultivation is still higher than his. What is there to be afraid of?" "That's right. Today, I want to see what kind of superhuman abilities this Su Zimo has." The 2 guardians shouted and leaped up. They attacked at the same time and unleashed their divine abilities and secret techniques. Their understanding of Su Zimo was merely based on some of the rumors that had been passed down. Therefore, their fear of Su Zimo was not as strong as Chen Xianyang's. "Xianggu army, listen to my command. Attack with all your might and kill this man." Wei Shan took a deep breath and waved his hand to give the order. He knew very well that he could not retreat now. If he fled like Chen Xianyang, the remaining Ziyanggu army would be reduced to a pile of loose sand. With Su Zimo's speed, he could not escape at all. Only by fighting to the death could they have a chance to survive. As long as they could hold Su Zimo back, they could buy as much time as possible even if they had to sacrifice their lives. When Chen Xianyang brought the news back to Ziyanggu, the Valley Master would come personally and kill this man. However, Su Zimo was too fast. Before the Ziyanggu army could react, the golden wings on his back flapped and he flew over their heads in an instant. At this time, the two Ziyanggu guardians' divine abilities and secret techniques had been formed and were about to envelop Su Zimo. After all, the two of them were Stage 7 mystic immortals. The two guardians reacted quickly and blocked Su Zimo's escape route in advance. Wei Shan also formed a divine ability with one hand and threw out a bronze seal with the other. The seal smashed toward Su Zimo's head. Umph! Su Zimo snorted and ignored the incoming divine ability and Dharma treasures. He activated his primordial spirit and used the secret technique of the dragons on the bronze square cauldron, 9 true dragon flashes. Swoosh! Su Zimo's body flashed and disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he had already passed by the 3 protectors and was now behind them. Chen Xianyang, give me your life. Su Zimo stared at Chen Xuanyang's back and shouted. Su Zimo used his primordial spirit and roared with the roar of the dragon and phoenix. The forbidden suppression descended. Chen Xuanyang's steed whinnied and fell to the ground, trembling in fear as it defecated and urinated. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1864. Caught off guard, Chen Xianyang was sent flying from his mount. His reaction was extremely fast as well. Twisting his body as much as he could in midair, he stabilized himself and landed on the ground in a staggering manner. Just as he was about to continue fleeing, he heard a whooshing sound behind him. A gust of wind was approaching rapidly. The wings behind Su Zimo flapped, and he transformed into a golden beam of light that traveled thousands of kilometers in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, Chen Xianyang had already caught up to Chen Xianyang from behind. Chen Xianyang was horrified. He had already realized that there was no way he could escape. Fellow Taoist Su, as long as you're willing to let me off, I'll write off all the grudges between you and Ziyanggu. He turned around and pleaded, I, Chen Xianyang, swear that I'll never cause trouble for you again in the future. If I let you off today, who's going to pay for the deaths of the cultivators of Wind Snow Ridge? Su Zimo's expression was cold and he was unmoved. He reached out and slapped Chen Xuanyang's head viciously. But there was no way Chen Xianyang would resign himself to death. He growled deeply and wielded his spear with a single arm. Channeling his blood qi, he stabbed upwards, wanting to knock Su Zimo down from midair. To Chen Xianyang, as long as he could delay for a moment, he would have a chance of survival once everyone from Wei Shan arrived. Unfortunately, his opponent was Su Zimo. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as he reached out and grabbed the tip of the spear in a flash. Bursting with his physical strength, he pressed down. A cracking sound rang in Chen Xuanyang's ears like a bolt out of the blue. Su Zimo had snapped the spear in half. The webbing between Chen Xuanyang's thumb and index finger was torn and dripping with blood. He couldn't hold on to the remaining half of the spear and it flew out of his hand. Su Zimo grabbed the remaining half of the spear and descended from the sky. He aimed at Chen Xuanyang's head and stabbed downwards. Puchi! Half of the spear had pierced through Chen Xuanyang's head, piercing through his sea of consciousness and brain. Chen Xuanyang's eyes were wide open. His gaze was dull and his face was still filled with fear. With a plop, Chen Xianyang died on the spot. The exchange between the two of them happened in the blink of an eye. Chen Xuanyang's counterattack did not pose any threat to Su Zimo. Instead, he was killed on the spot. Before the 3 Dharma protectors of Ziyanggu could recover from the strange scene of Su Zimo disappearing before their eyes, Chen Xianyang had already died. Young master, Wei Shan looked at Chen Xianyang, who was lying in a pool of blood, with a complicated expression. To a certain extent, Chen Xuanyang's intuition was right this time. The first person Su Zimo wanted to kill was him. However, even if he knew, he could not escape and was the first to die. The Xianggu army also fell into a temporary silence. Just now, Chen Xianyang was still in high spirits and commanding the three armies. But now Chen Xianyang was a corpse. Wei Shan took a deep breath and said slowly, "Fellow Taoists of Xianggu, listen up. We want to avenge our young master. We will not allow the dignity of Xianggu to be challenged like this." Wei Shan's words caused many Xianggu cultivators to recover from their shock. "Kill them." Another Xianggu Dharma protector raised his arm and shouted, taking the lead and charging forward. The Xianggu army also swarmed over with a torrential aura. Swoosh, 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 boom, boom, boom. In an instant, countless Dharma treasures tore through the air. As far as the eye could see, they were densely packed and covered the sky like locusts. Immortal skills and mystical abilities also shone resplendently in midair, causing the sky to change color and sand to fly everywhere. When the surviving cultivators of Wind Snow Ridge saw this scene, they were all worried. One had to know that when they attacked Wind Snow Ridge, Xianggu only sent 10,000 troops to fight. Even so, Wind Snow Ridge did not last long before they were completely defeated. Right now, there was a total of 20,000 troops. And these 20,000 troops only had to deal with one person. Even if the 20,000 troops of Xianggu did nothing and just charged over, they would probably be able to trample the weak-looking Su Zimo to death, right? Su Zimo did not release the Kacharati Dao fire. This was Wind Snow Ridge. Not far away, there were many surviving cultivators of Wind Snow Ridge. If he released the Kacharati Dao fire, he would be able to severely injure the Xianggu army. However, he would also be able to injure the cultivators of Wind Snow Ridge. Wind Snow Ridge would also be burned into ruins. Against the endless Dharma treasures and mystical abilities, Su Zimo's figure rose into the air slowly. He waved his hands in front of him and drew a series of mysterious trajectories. Spirit Turtle Shield, condense. Su Zimo hollered softly and channeled his innate mystical ability. In front of him, a gigantic ancient turtle shell appeared. There were curved ravines carved on the turtle shell that shone with a divine light in a bedazzling manner. Clang, clang, clang. Many Dharma treasures collided against the ancient turtle shell and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. A single Dharma treasure could not affect the Spirit Turtle Shield at all. However, when the tens of thousands of Dharma treasures swarmed over, they formed an unimaginable power. Against such an impact, the divine light on the Spirit Turtle Shield flickered. At the same time, many immortal skills and mystical abilities descended at the same time. Boom, boom. An earth-shattering explosion erupted from the Spirit Turtle Shield. The divine light on the turtle shell finally dimmed against the repeated bombardment of the immortal skills and mystical abilities. Crack, 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 crack. Cracking sounds could be heard from the turtle shell. Immediately after, right in front of everyone, the Spirit Turtle Shield shattered into pieces. When Wei Shan saw that, he was invigorated and shouted, "That's all there is to that person. Fellow Taoists, as long as we join forces, we'll definitely be able to kill him." The moment he said that, Wei Shan felt his heart skip a beat. The turtle shell exploded and the dust dispersed. Su Zimo stood in midair and conjured sword seals with both hands. Endless killing intent emanated from his body, as though it could shake the world and turn the firmaments upside down. One after another, gigantic stars appeared in the skies. However, those stars were attracted by some unknown power and their trajectories were chaotic as they crushed one another. The ground trembled as well, as though some peerless ferocious spirit was about to break out of the ground. When the heavens release their killing intent, the stars shift. When the earth releases its killing intent, dragons and serpents rise. Slay! Su Zimo waved his hands and slashed forward with his sword. Instantly, countless sword chi spewed out from his right-hand sword fingers. It was white and bedazzling as it tore through the air with torrential killing intent. Roar! Pissed! On the other side, Su Zimo's left-hand sword fingers slashed out with dragons and serpents. Above the firmaments, A divine dragon swooped down and slaughtered its way into the crowd. Everywhere it passed, people were thrown off their feet. A gigantic crack appeared in the ground as a scarlet behemoth charged out from the crack. Bathed in boiling lava, it flapped its wings and roared into the skies. Heaven-slaying sword Chi rampaged and reaped lives. Earth-slaying sword Chi condensed into dragons and serpents that slaughtered living beings. At that moment, the two sword arts revealed a terrifying killing power. Remember the mobile version of the website? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios Terrifying Killing Intent. Page 1/1. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1865. Sword Chi hummed as killing intent swept through the battlefield. The two great sword arts reproduced the scene of destruction. Actually, no matter how powerful the two great sword arts were, Su Zimo was only one person and his cultivation realm was not enough to suppress them. As long as the 20,000 Zhiyangu army attacked together, they would definitely be able to neutralize the two great sword arts and reduce the casualties to the minimum. However, the dragon snake rushed into the army and scattered the 20,000 Zhiyangu army, causing them to fight on their own. The heaven-slaying sword Chi descended from the sky and caused an extremely terrifying massacre to the Zhiyangu cultivators. Under the heaven-slaying sword Chi and the earth-slaying dragon snake, the Stage 4 and Stage 5 mystic immortals in the Zhiyangu army could not withstand it at all. A single heaven-slaying sword Chi could even penetrate two Tier 4 cultivators before dissipating from the body of a Tier 5 mystic immortal. Under the watchful eyes of the people from Wind Snow Ridge, the people on the battlefield fell one by one like wheat being harvested. Wei Shan and the other two also attacked, penetrating the dragon snake and blocking a lot of heaven-slaying sword Chi before charging towards Su Zimo. The three of them knew that only by killing Su Zimo as soon as possible would they be able to neutralize the killing power of the terrifying sword Chi. Kill! Wei Shan and the other two roared as they charged toward him. The protector on the left was holding a long sword that was trembling like a snake flicking its tongue. Sword Chi whistled. He was a sword cultivator. The protector on the right did not go forward. He stood not far away and controlled a flying sword with one hand and a divine power with the other, attacking Su Zimo. Wei Shan held a saber in his right hand and a bronze seal in his left hand as he faced Su Zimo. Su Zimo was facing the siege of 3 Stage 7 mystic immortals with a fearful expression. Back in Dragon Lake City, he was only a Stage 5 mystic immortal and was attacked by 5 or 6 Stage 7 mystic immortals. He had already killed them all. Now that his cultivation had broken through and his strength had increased, he no longer needed to use any divine powers or secret techniques to deal with the siege of 3 Stage 7 mystic immortals. Su Zimo's forehead flickered. With a thought, a bronze square cauldron flew out and smashed into the sword cultivator on the left. In all fairness, this sword cultivator's swordsmanship was quite exquisite. But no matter how good your swordsmanship is, you can still break it with brute force. The sword cultivator held a long sword in his hand. The sword radiance flickered in and out. It was both real and fake. However, the bronze square cauldron's aura was astonishing. It was as if it was going to smash a hole in the sky. Clang! The bronze square tripod collided with the long sword. The sword cultivator shuddered and his gaze froze. Kakaka! Clear cracks had already appeared on the body of the sword. Then, the long sword exploded with a bang. Countless fragments of the long sword flew back under the tremendous force of the bronze square cauldron. This sword cultivator was so close that there was no way to dodge. More than half of the sword fragments had entered his body. In the blink of an eye, the sword cultivator was riddled with holes by his own sword. He slumped to the ground weakly, no longer able to live. Su Zimo took out the bronze square cauldron and did not look at the sword cultivator. He had long expected this to happen. He waved his sleeves and suddenly, a handful of yellow sand flew out. It was Qinglian's utmost treasure, the 9 heavens living soil. The yellow sand shone with a golden light and formed a barrier, blocking the other protector's flying sword and divine powers. At the same time, the yellow sand moved with the wind and engulfed the protector as though it had a mind of its own. Ah! The person exclaimed and wanted to retreat. However, the yellow sand was even faster. It circled around him and engulfed him in a single breath. The yellow sand surged and squeezed against each other. Every single grain of yellow sand released an extremely terrifying power that acted on the protector. Instantly, the protector's essence spirit was destroyed by the yellow sand and he turned into a blood mist. The yellow sand continued to shine with a golden light without a single trace of blood. It was mystical. By the time Wei Shan arrived with his gigantic seal and saber, the two Xianggu protectors were already dead. Wei Shan's expression was shocked. Although he had long heard of the battle in Dragon Lake City 50 years ago, he could not have imagined that Su Zimo's methods would be so terrifying and domineering. Wei Shan's heart skipped a beat the moment his gaze met with Su Zimo's. Oh no! Wei Shan knew that something was amiss, but he still tried his best to compose himself. Gripping his saber tightly, he slashed down viciously at Su Zimo's face. When this saber slashed down, it actually swept up numerous swift and fierce wind blades. That was a superior yellow-grade saber technique, Windbreaker Saber. When released at full strength, it would produce endless wind blades with immense lethality. Freeze! Su Zimo had a calm expression as he opened his mouth and spat out a single word. Wei Shan's body trembled as he felt a strange force suddenly descend upon him. He could not move at all. In the blink of an eye, the countless blades collapsed. Wei Shan's blood qi surged and he let out a deep roar from the depths of his throat. He channeled his essence spirit furiously and broke free from that power. However, at the same time, his vision darkened. "You're dead." Those two words rang in Wei Shan's ears. The next moment, he felt a sharp pain in his head as his essence spirit shattered, and he died on the spot. With the help of the fixed body art, Su Zimo was able to kill Wei Shan with ease. The 3 level 7 mystic immortals of Xianggu were all dead. On the battlefield, even with the 2 shocking sword arts, heavenly slaying and earthly slaying, there was no way they could kill an entire army of 20,000. Su Zimo stood in midair with a cold expression as he channeled his essence spirit once more to conjure a divine power. He extended his finger and pointed ahead. Boom! Above the firmament, a thick and huge gray stone pillar broke through the clouds and descended from the sky. A lifelike divine dragon coiled around the stone pillar. It was an innate divine power, the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Boom! The ancestral dragon divine pillar fell into the crowd and crushed more than 10 Xianggu cultivators who could not dodge in time. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness moved and the thick ancestral dragon divine pillar fell towards the crowd. Many cultivators were shocked and retreated one after another. Immediately after, under Su Zimo's control, the ancestral dragon divine pillar burst forth with a torrential aura and crushed towards the crowd. It was an extremely shocking scene. It was as though a supreme deity was rolling the stone pillar and crushing the fleeing ants on the ground mercilessly. The Xianggu cultivators fled frantically. However, there were still many cultivators who could not dodge the rolling ancestral dragon divine pillar and were crushed into a pile of blood, their bodies and essence spirits destroyed. Su Zimo, you killed so many people from Xianggu. The Valley Master will definitely tear you into pieces. A Blood Sun Valley cultivator had a crazed look on his face as he screamed hysterically. The ancestral dragon divine pillar crushed over and the cultivator's body exploded instantly. Even the army of 20,000 Xianggu could not withstand Su Zimo's attack. At this moment, the ground began to shake irregularly and dust billowed in the distance. It was as though a huge army was rushing towards this place. The expressions of everyone from Feng Shuling changed. Could it be that Xianggu's reinforcements have arrived? On the other hand, everyone from Xianggu was invigorated. Su Zimo, you're finished. The Valley Master is here personally with his army. Prepare to die. The Xianggu cultivator looked into the distance with anticipation. Not long after, a towering giant appeared on the horizon in the distance, striding toward this place. Behind him, there were countless demon beasts that were charging towards this place with a ferocious momentum and murderous intent. What is that? Many of the Blood Sun Valley cultivators were shocked and at a loss. Chapter 1866. The giant's body was shimmering with silver light, as if it was made of molten steel. Its face was ferocious, and its eyes were without a nose. It opened its mouth wide and let out a deafening roar. It's a giant. It looks like a silver giant. What are these demonic beasts trying to do? There were less than 10,000 cultivators left in Xianggu. There were tens of thousands of demonic beasts charging at them. Dust billowed, and their momentum was terrifying. It was as if they were going to swallow them whole. Look, there are cultivators sitting on some of the demonic beasts. A Blood Sun Valley cultivator's eyes widened as he cried out in surprise. Everyone hurriedly focused their gazes. It was as expected. Among the tens of thousands of demonic beasts, there were more than 1,000 human cultivators. All of them were murderous, and their leader was a level 7 mystic immortal. The silver giant strode forward and stretched out its thick arms. It grabbed a towering ancient tree beside it and let out a loud roar. The towering ancient tree was pulled out of the ground by the silver giant. The Xianggu cultivators were dumbfounded at the sight of such shocking divine power. Their faces turned pale. The silver giant carried the towering ancient tree and slashed at the ancient tree with its arms, breaking all the branches on the ancient tree. In the blink of an eye, the towering ancient tree became a thick wooden stick in the hands of the silver giant. The silver giant soared into the sky, grabbed the ancient tree with both hands, and smashed it into the Xianggu army on the battlefield. Boom! There was a loud crash. The silver giant smashed at least dozens of Xianggu cultivators to death. Roar, roar, roar. The silver giant was excited. Using its shocking divine power, it held the towering ancient tree with both hands and swung it around the crowd. The Xianggu cultivators could not withstand it at all. The demonic beast army behind the silver giant also charged forward. Ying Zhao, with a human face and a horse body, rampaged through the crowd. The cultivators who were trampled were either killed or seriously injured. The giant wasp flapped its wings and flew, emitting a buzzing sound that made people's hearts palpitate. The huge poisonous needle on its tail could actually leave the wasp's tail and move freely among the crowd. Even if they were grazed by the poisonous needles, the Xianggu cultivators' bodies began to bubble with blood and smoke. Soon, they turned into puddles of pus, their souls and bodies destroyed. The nine-headed bird raised its head to the sky and let out a long cry as it passed through the crowd. Its 9 heads swayed and opened their mouths at the same time, swallowing 9 Xianggu cultivators in one go. The remaining Xianggu cultivators had already been slaughtered by Su Zimo and were thrown into disarray. Now, with tens of thousands of demonic beasts charging at them, they were completely defeated, and there were countless casualties. Everyone from Wind Snow Ridge was shocked. They were still unable to understand why those monstrous beasts, powerful creatures like the silver giant, would rush over to help Feng Shuling. The remaining Xianggu cultivators had no more strength to fight and could only flee in panic. However, their remaining warhorses were all paralyzed by the auras of those powerful ferocious beasts and terrifying living beings. Given the speed of the Xianggu cultivators, there was no way they could escape from the pursuit of so many demon beasts. Some of the demon beasts were bloodthirsty and even charged towards Xia Qingying and the others with murderous intent. In the eyes of those demon beasts, Xianggu and Wind Snow Ridge were nothing. In the eyes of the demons, those cultivators were food that they could devour. Don't. Right then, a figure riding on a yellow dog sprinted over and stopped many demon beasts, shouting, "They're on our side, don't kill them." Fatty Duan. Someone in Wind Snow Ridge recognized the figure on the yellow dog and exclaimed softly. Xia Qingying focused her gaze. That was Duan Tianliang, who was brought away by Su Zimo from Wind Snow Ridge. After 60 years, Duan Tianliang had already cultivated to level 3 Mystic Essence Realm. Although many demon beasts recognized Duan Tianliang and knew that he was someone who followed Su Zimo, they did not care about his orders. Some demon beasts stopped in time and retracted their killing intent. However, some demon beasts did not care and charged past Duan Tianliang towards Xia Qingying and the others. Right then, a blinding saber beam descended from the skies and slashed down, as though it wanted to slice the world into two. Boom! There was a deafening sound. In the blink of an eye, the demon beasts that charged towards Wind Snow Ridge were severed at the waist by the blazing saber beam, and blood gushed out. The saber beam was so terrifying that it even created a gigantic ravine on the ground that was dyed red with blood. The corpses of the demon beasts that were severed at the waist almost filled the entire ravine, and it was a shocking sight. Those demon beasts were killed by that single slash before they could even touch Xia Qingying and the others. The demons were shocked. Some of the demon beasts that had not charged forward hurriedly stopped in their tracks. That was the terrifying saber beam that Su Zimo released after killing Wei Shan and snatching the saber from his hands. Su Zimo flew over with a cold expression. Although the demon beast army was strong, it was not easy to control them. Once they started fighting and saw blood, they would easily fall into a frenzy. Su Zimo's slash calmed the demons down instantly. The ravine that was filled with demon beasts' corpses was also a warning to the remaining demons. Anyone who dared to cross that line would be killed without mercy. The demons understood Su Zimo's intentions and turned around, charging towards the remaining Zhuanggu cultivators. There was no suspense in this battle anymore. Under the encirclement of tens of thousands of demon beasts, not many of the remaining Zhuanggu cultivators could escape alive. Su Zimo descended from midair and arrived in front of Xia Qingying and the others. Xia Qingying looked at Su Zimo and forced a smile. "You're here." She should have thanked him and felt grateful. However, at that moment, she hugged her father's corpse that was gradually turning cold. Her heart was filled with grief and despair, and she truly did not want to say anything. Su Zimo looked at Xia Qingying and sighed gently. He had never met the territorial lord of Snow Ridge. To think that the territorial lord was already dead when he met him today. "Brother Su, I knew that you'd definitely come." Right then, a weak voice sounded from not far away. Su Zimo looked over and saw a man covered in blood sitting weakly on the ground. His face was ashen and his gaze was murky. His life aura was weak and he was already at the end of his life. "Old Yen." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he hurried forward. He took out a few elixirs from his storage bag and stuffed them into Old Yan's mouth. However, the elixirs fell out the moment they entered his mouth. Old Yen panted slightly and did not even have the strength to swallow the elixirs. "Brother Su, I can't do it anymore." Old Yan's mouth twitched as though he wanted to laugh. "It's not too bad to be able to see you one last time before I die." As though he thought of something, Old Yen suddenly grabbed Su Zimo's wrist. "Brother Su, just now, I got separated from my child during the battle. I'm worried about him and hope that you can help me find him." End of chapter. Chapter 1867. Su Zimo did not have a deep relationship with Lao Yen. To him, Lao Yen was only the first person he befriended when he first arrived in the upper world. However, for some reason, Su Zimo felt a sense of sadness when he saw Old Yan's death. This was because he saw in Lao Yen the destination of the vast majority of ascenders. Lao Yen was the epitome of these ascenders from the lower world. Through Lao Yen, Su Zimo seemed to see everything that many of his old friends in Tianhuang mainland would experience after ascending to the upper world. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. Su Zimo felt a little suffocated in his chest, as if there was a breath of air that he had nowhere to vent. How did this happen? Su Zimo asked, "Why did Zhuanggu attack Feng Shuling? 50 years ago, Zhuanggu was defeated in the 100,000 Mountains and its reputation fell to the bottom. There were many forces in the vicinity that wanted to break away from Zhuanggu's control." Xia Qingying said, "After that, Blood Sun Valley sent an army to suppress these forces mercilessly. Feng Shuling did not have a direct conflict with Zhuanggu. Father only gave the order to temporarily stop going to Zhuanggu to exchange for essence condensation pills. Instead, he saved the immortal herbs that he harvested and made plans after the situation stabilized." Xia Qingying laughed bitterly and said, "It was such a decision that angered Chen Xianyang and he sent an army of 20,000. It was only then that Su Zimo stood up slowly. With a cold gaze, he sprinted towards the distance with a terrifying aura. "Boss, where are you going?" Duan Tianliang asked hurriedly. "Zhuanggu." After Su Zimo said those 3 words, A pair of huge golden wings condensed behind him. With a flap of his wings, he turned into a golden light and disappeared from everyone's sight. Xia Qingying suddenly reacted and said hurriedly, "No. The Valley Master of Xianggu is an 8th stage mystic immortal. There should be an army of tens of thousands of cultivators in Xianggu. Fellow Taoist Su, you can't go there alone." By the time Xia Qingying finished speaking, Su Zimo had already disappeared. "Duan Tianyang, hurry up and bring people to Xianggu to help fellow Taoist Su." Xia Qingying took a deep breath and tried her best to break free from her grief. She said in a low voice, "We are no longer in any danger here. We can't let fellow Taoist Su face the entire Xianggu alone." Duan Tianyang nodded and went straight to Yu Hao. "Brother Yu, bring the Yang extermination camp's men and we will go to Xianggu together. Boss has already gone there." Duan Tianyang said, "Just leave the snow wind ridge to these demonic beasts. With the silver giant, the giant bee and the 9-headed bird, these demonic beasts won't cause any trouble." "Alright." Yu Hao's eyes shone with murderous intent. He said in a low voice, "Brothers of Yang extermination camp, listen up. Today, we will kill our way to Xianggu and avenge our dead relatives." "Kill our way to Xianggu?" More than 1,000 Yang extermination camp cultivators roared loudly. "Let's go." Yu Hao waved his hand and everyone sped in the direction of Xianggu. "Xianggu. Young Master and the others should be back soon, right?" "That's not necessarily true. After Young Master exterminates the Wind Snow Ridge and captures the young miss of the Wind Snow Ridge, he might even spend a night in the Wind Snow Ridge and have sex with her, hee hee." The guards at the door had nothing to do, so they gathered together and laughed. Young Master has been eyeing that little girl for some years. He was still willing to put on an act and save the damsel in distress. One of them laughed. "This time, our young master has finally thought it through. No matter what, let's snatch that little girl first." "What's that over there?" Another guard looked into the distance and frowned slightly. Chapter 1868. Su Zimo. The Xianggu Valley Master stared at the figure at the entrance of the palace with a fierce expression. Although the two of them had never met before, he could immediately guess that the black-haired, green-robed cultivator in front of him was Su Zimo, who had been making a name for himself on the Dragon Abyss planet in recent years. Their gazes collided in midair, opposing each other with equal harshness. A terrifying aura emanated from the Xianggu Valley Master's body as he asked slowly, "Is my son, Xianyang, still alive?" "I've already killed him." Su Zimo said coldly, "Don't worry, I'll send you and your son down to reunite immediately." The Xianggu Valley Master laughed and said, "Good, good, good. It's been so many years since anyone dared to speak to me like this. I didn't expect to be threatened by a junior who has only ascended for less than 100 years. The Xianggu Valley Master stood up slowly and said coldly, "Su Zimo, with your talent and aptitude, if you're willing to lay low and cultivate to stage 8 Mystic Immortal, I'm afraid no one on the Dragon Abyss planet will be able to suppress you. However, you're still too young and too powerful. You're only at stage 6 Mystic Immortal realm and you dare to come to Xianggu and challenge me. Today, I want you to pay with your life for my son." As soon as he finished speaking, the Xianggu Valley Master slapped his storage bag and took out a huge halberd. As he injected his primordial chi into the halberd vibrated and 5 runes flashed. This halberd was actually a mystic-grade perfect Dharma treasure. Su Zimo was fearless as he strode towards the Xianggu Valley Master. His glabella shone and a bronze square cauldron appeared and floated above his head. The Xianggu Valley Master leaped and held the halberd with both hands. He descended from the sky and slashed down heavily towards the approaching Su Zimo. "Kill!" Su Zimo shouted at the same time. However, the word "kill" contained a powerful sound domain's secret technique. It was like a thunderclap that reverberated in the palace, deafening everyone. The master of Xianggu Valley trembled. However, his blood chi surged and instantly suppressed the effects of thunderclap kill. The Valley Master of Xiangu Valley looked at the broken bronze square cauldron hanging above Su Zimo's head with a stern gaze. His strength increased again. As far as he was concerned, the cauldron had already shattered to such an extent. So long as he struck with his full strength, he would definitely be able to blast the cauldron into pieces. Clang! The halberd landed on the bronze square cauldron and sparks flew everywhere. The bronze square cauldron remained motionless. On the other hand, the Xiangu Valley Master felt a strong rebounding force. His entire arm was numb from the shock. Su Zimo's divine sense moved. The bronze square cauldron flew across the void without stopping and crashed toward the Xiangu Valley Master. Clang! There was another deafening sound. The Valley Master of Xiangu Valley swept his halberd horizontally and blocked the bronze square cauldron. However, he was forced to descend from midair. Su Zimo strode forward and transformed into a green shadow. His blood chi surged with the sound of a tsunami. He was bent on killing the master of Xiangu Valley today and did not care if Qinglian's bloodline was exposed. Su Zimo closed in on the master of Xiangu Valley rapidly and slapped the latter's head with a flip of his palm. This palm strike was like an enormous millstone, and it emitted a powerful crushing and obliterating force. Great Chaos Essence Palm. The master of Xiangu Valley raised his halberd and blocked once more. Bang! Su Zimo's palm landed on the halberd and the entire halberd trembled slightly. The master of Xiangu Valley Master was shocked. He had long heard of Su Zimo's combat strength. His physique was strong and he had many divine powers and secret skills. However, it was only until today's fight that he realized how terrifying Su Zimo's melee combat strength was. He almost knocked the halberd out of his hands with his physical body. There was a difference of 2 minor cultivation realms between the two of them. However, that difference was completely erased against Qinglian's true body with surging blood chi. Not only that, almost the moment the two of them exchanged blows, the master of Xiangu Valley Master was already at a disadvantage and could not turn the situation around. Su Zimo controlled the bronze square cauldron with his spirit consciousness and suppressed the master of Xiangu continuously while fighting in melee combat. With a single halberd, the master of Xiangu Valley Master could not withstand at all and was forced to retreat. Snip! Su Zimo seized the opportunity and punched the chest of the master of Xiangu Valley Master, shattering the heart protection mirror on his chest instantly. Buzz! After the heart protection mirror shattered, it burst forth with a powerful halo that repelled Su Zimo. The master of Xiangu Valley Master retreated hurriedly and took the opportunity to catch his breath with a grim expression. The two of them exchanged blows for dozens of breaths. However, under Su Zimo's powerful attacks, he was already drenched in sweat and his entire body was sore. Although he had withstood those rounds, he had expended too much of his energy. On the other hand, Su Zimo was still breathing steadily and his face was flushed after the fight. There was no sign of fatigue at all. The master of Xiangu Valley Master realized that if the fight continued, he would definitely be killed by Su Zimo. Just now, he had the heart protection mirror that saved his life. The next time around, there wouldn't be any treasure that could defend against Su Zimo's attack. A hint of madness flashed through the eyes of the master of Xiangu Valley Master. His expression was ferocious, as though he had made an extremely important decision. Maniac Mystic Skill. The master of Xiangu Valley Master channeled his essence spirit and channeled his mystic skill. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a gigantic vortex that devoured heaven-earth yuan qi wildly. His aura and power within his body rose rapidly within a short period of time. To begin with, the master of Xiangu Valley was at the peak of Mystic Essence Realm Level 8. Right now, his strength was rising continuously without any signs of stopping. In a short period of time, he had already broken through to Mystic Essence Realm Level 9. Su Zimo frowned slightly. In the cultivation world, there were indeed some cultivation techniques and secret skills that could forcefully raise one's strength. However, a mystic skill that could allow one to break through a cultivation realm was extremely rare. Haha. The master of Xiangu Valley Master was filled with rich heaven-earth yuan qi. Sensing the immense power within his body, He reared his head in laughter. Su Zimo, this is a mystic skill that I obtained by chance. This is my trump card. Prepare to die. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and sensed for a moment. Suddenly, he sneered, the drawback of this mystic skill is way too obvious. While the master of Xiang'e Valley Master's strength was rising, his lifespan was decreasing rapidly as well. Initially, he was a middle-aged man with a head of black hair. However, in the span of a few breaths, his hair had turned white and his face was filled with wrinkles. By the looks of it, the master of Xiang'e Valley Master's lifespan was less than 10,000 years. A mystic immortal had a lifespan of 100,000 years. If he was less than 10,000 years old, it meant that he was already in his twilight years. It was also because he had sacrificed a large amount of his lifespan that the master of Xiang'e Valley Master was able to forcefully raise his cultivation realm and obtain immense power for a short period of time. Even if he could kill Su Zimo today, he would never be able to recover the lifespan he had lost. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.